Okay, as long as the video is recording, it's not showing up on our monitor. Okay, sorry for the delay.
That's okay.
Now it's showing up on the monitor, so I guess we got it fixed.
Just for the record,
Yes.
we'll go ahead and restart the
Thank you.
meeting, calling it to order at 7:06. This is the Beavercreek Township Zoning Commission meeting for November the 7th, 2024. All right. Roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Horton?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yeah.
And Ms. Salter?
Yes. Okay. Before we approve the agenda, I just want to make certain that everybody had an opportunity to see the agenda. Yes? We have some new members here, so. Yeah, oh, that's right. It's not on our cheat sheet. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, good job, Rick.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call me Grace. So I want to re-clarify that everyone received the copy of the agenda, correct? We have members that weren't here before and those that are. I want to make certain that if there's anything that we, as a new group, I just want to reaffirm that there are no conflicts of interest. No? Okay, all right. No? Okay. And is there any request for change to the agenda for any reason? Yep. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you all for returning back to us. I wanted to make certain that we had a robust, a full board that could give a robust and comprehensive review of the case, and so that was the purpose of extending it. It was long-winded the last time to get to that, and I appreciate your patience with me to arrive to this day. All right, so let's go ahead and hear the, we had the public hearing notice. Did that have to go out a second time?
It didn't have to go out, but we went ahead and sent it anyway.
Great, okay. And it was within the time frame and the usual approach, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, all right. And I think we then are ready for a staff report.
Okay, the case for us tonight is 837A, which is overdevelopment. Oh, this mouse is very sensitive. So the applicant in this case is Overdevelopment Ltd. The applicant has submitted a site plan for approval pursuant to Article 1707 of the Beavercreek Township zoning resolution. This site plan is for a subdivision to be known as Walnut Ridge. It's located on the east side of Alpha Bellbrook, approximately 775 feet north of the intersection of Alpha Bellbrook and Indian Ripple Road. The PUD rezoning was approved on January 22nd, 2024. The calculated density is 2.27 units per acre, which is under the approved 2.5 units per acre that was approved with the PUD rezoning. The development contains 84 single-family lots with 4.59 acres of open space and 6.61 acres of right-of-way. The area is identified as residential use in the township's comprehensive plan and a site plan. This site plan application meets the standards of completeness set forth in 1707.5 of the zoning resolution as determined by staff. Some context to the case. Over Land Development and the Civil Engineer Ranking Group submitted a specific site plan approval earlier this year. They were required by the Greene County engineers to undergo a traffic study. Said traffic study is now complete. Comments have been made and resubmitted to the engineer. I asked the engineer if that was officially approved yet, and I did not get a response back, but they addressed all the comments in it. So it should be, once they get the comments back, then it generally is approved by the engineer. It is important to note that this site plan is not the final engineering phase of development. When and if the trustees approve a site plan, that development must then go through the subdivision approval process with the Greene County Regional Planning Commission. During that multi-phase process, various county agencies provide official recommendations which may necessitate changes to the overall site plan that gets approved by the trustees. Site plans can be approved with conditions that require subdivision approval by Greene County Regional Planning Commission, which provides another layer of scrutiny to ensure that development occurs harmoniously. So this was the requirements of the resolution that was approved back in January of 2024 by the trustees. They were approved with the condition of a maximum density for the RPUD shall be no more than 2.5 dwelling units per acre. Any proposed lots directly adjacent to the RPUD shall be a minimum of 20,000 square feet. The minimum lot width shall be 60 feet, 35 feet for cul-de-sac lots. The minimum building setbacks for the PUD shall be as follows: front yard 30 feet, rear yard 30 feet except for lots that abut the existing RPUD, and that'd be the Arlington Place lots. They'll have a minimum of 50-foot setback. Side yards 5. However, on lots that share a side yard with the existing RPUD, the side yard setback shall be 10 feet on each side. And no principal structure shall be closer than 15 feet on each side. So in other words, they can have a 5-yard setback, but no two houses can be closer than 15 feet apart. So if one has 5, the other would have to have 10. Here is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. This is the area along Arlington Place, showing that 50-foot setback along, rear yard setback along the Arlington Place properties, and the lot sizes for those. This is showing the connection out at Alpha Bell. These are excerpts from their traffic study that was submitted to the Greene County engineer, showing the east and west driveways, Alpha Bell Road, Indian Ripple to the south there. And this is a zoomed in version, so you can see that we're putting some turn lanes and drop lanes in as required by the traffic study. So if you're heading basically northeast on Alpha Bell Brook, there'll be a turn lane to go into the new subdivision in the city, and just a turn into the new subdivision in the township. Going southwest on Alpha Bell Brook, you would have a turn lane going into the new subdivision in the city, and a turn lane going into the other proposed subdivision in the township. At the last meeting, I was asked to specifically go through the requirements for the specific site plan. So these were also in my staff report, but up on the screen to go through. So the first criteria, the specific site plan complies with the purpose and intent of the zoning resolution. The proposed site plan complies with both the township zoning resolution and more specifically, the resolution which describes the allowable uses, density, and setbacks within the PUD rezoning adopted January 22nd, 2024. The proposed development carries out the purpose and intent of the land use plan. Both the township's comprehensive land use plan and the Greene County's perspectives 2020 planning documents identify the area planned for residential use. Greene County, their perspectives 2020 planning documents identify the area as low density, and that is defined by them as lots greater than 1 and less than 3 units per acre. The 2012 Beavercreek Township comprehensive plan designates the area as residential. That is defined as developments generally not to exceed 1.8 units per acre. However, this one was approved, that should say at 2.5, because it was approved at 2.5, but it is 2.27, which was what they submitted. In addition, the plan states that with recognition with market demand for different types of housing products may justify variation, and ultimately the final decision will be with the trustees. The proposed development promotes health, safety, and general welfare of the present and future inhabitants of the township. The proposed development has been preliminarily reviewed by sanitary engineering for water and sewer and county engineer for traffic and stormwater management. The developer was required to conduct a traffic study, which was completed by the Kleinger's Group and was submitted to the county engineer, is in the process of being accepted. Through discussion with staff, it is determined that the proposed development will provide sufficient infrastructure to support the health, safety, and general welfare of the township. Further site engineering via regional planning subdivision process will also ensure such health, safety, and welfare. And what I mean by that is when it goes to subdivision planning requirements, all those agencies then retake a look at that plan. The specific site plan substantially complies with the substantial conformance requirement of 1707.06 of this resolution. Having reviewed the resolution from January of 2024, I went through to verify that they were meeting all those requirements that were set forth in that, and they are. The proposed development has no significant detrimental impact that outweighs the development's benefits to the community. Staff's determination through discussion with various county agencies is that the proposed development will not result in significant detrimental impact on the community. Further, site engineering via the regional planning subdivision process will ensure that any detrimental impacts will be eliminated or minimized to a level that does not outweigh the benefits of development. I did consult with the Beavercreek Township Fire Department regarding the connection to the stub street located on Patrick Henry in Arlington Place for this project. The fire department no longer accepts emergency access or ingress or egress points as an acceptable alternative for secondary access to subdivisions. Any access will be required to be unrestricted, dedicated right-of-way. The connection to this point to the future adjacent projects was planned for at the time of the creation of Arlington Place to ensure future connectivity and access. Did I miss one? The proposed streets and driveways of the site on the site of the proposed development will be adequate to serve the residents, occupants, or users of the proposed development. And the specific site plan, along with any necessarily off-site vehicular circulation improvements, provides adequate vehicular ingress and egress and will be accessible from the current and planned public thoroughfare, adequate to carry out traffic, which will be imposed upon them by the proposed development. Staff is satisfied that the developer has completed the traffic study, which resulted in the proposed layout for the streets, ingress, and egress points. The configuration and intersections shown on the site plan and further engineering during the regional planning subdivision process will ensure that the development will include sufficient road infrastructure to support safe and effective vehicular circulation. I've only got a few more. The proposed development minimizes conflict between vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle circulation patterns and movement. Staff has identified that there are no multi-use pathways situated in the area. Throughout the proposed development, there are sidewalks that connect various cul-de-sacs with each other. There is access to the common areas as well. Staff is confident that the proposed roadway configuration minimizes conflict between motorized and non-motorized traffic throughout the development. The benefits of the proposed development mitigate any burden on public services and facilities, including fire and police protection. Once again, kind of referring to the subdivision regulations from regional planning, along with the township's own requirements from the fire department standpoint, should combine to mitigate that burden of the proposed development on public services and facilities. Existing and proposed utility services for residential population densities and non-residential uses are adequate for the projected demand during all phases of development and at full completion of the development. There are only residential uses provided or proposed. Final engineering to be completed during a regional planning subdivision process. Initial review was conducted at the rezoning phase and shows that developers are designing the proposed site to align with expected utility needs. The proposed development complies with applicable requirements and conditions of 1705 of this resolution, which they do. Each individual section or sub-area of the development, as well as the total development, can exist as functionally independent environment. In the alternative and at discretion of the township, adequate assurance has been provided that the applicant and to the satisfaction of the township that such objective will be achieved. And I believe what this is trying to say in the zoning resolution is some subdivisions are created with several phases and everything else that each one could be developed in accordance with that plan, which this one will be functionally independent of itself. The design and other amenities incorporated in the proposed development will provide increased benefits to the residents, occupants, users, and the community, and such design and other amenities are in accord with the planned unit development provisions of the zoning resolutions and other applicable resolutions of the township. Proposed amenities include a network of sidewalks, open space, and ponds. So there are benefits to the residents and occupants of that subdivision. 13, the proposed development contains such covenants and easements and other forms of property rights and control as may be reasonably required for the maintenance and care of common private facilities and for the public health, safety, and welfare. If there is governmental ownership of common open space, recreational facilities, or other common facilities is planned, a copy of its acceptance has been filed with the application. There's nothing going to a governmental agency. This will all be privately owned and maintained. And they'll have to submit that on the final plat as far as what those covenants, restrictions, anything else would be. So, recommendations and conditions. Staff recommends approval of the proposed specific site plan. The applicant has addressed the specific site issues contained within the original RPUD rezoning. Staff believes, to the best of our knowledge, that the site plan meets all the criteria as approved, or approval outlined in Article 1707-12 of this resolution. Future engineering will be completed in conjunction with the Greene County Regional Planning subdivision approval process. Staff recommends a series of conditions be placed on the approval of the site plan to ensure the eventual development configuration promotes the health, safety, and welfare of the current and future township residents. Final approval, these are the recommendations. Final approval is subject to the approval of Greene County Regional Planning Commission and Regional Planning and Coordinating Commission, The site plan's final engineering shall meet all Greene County subdivision requirements. Any modification to the proposed site plan resulting from final engineering during the county subdivision approval process shall be considered incidental modification as outlined in 1711-3 of the Township Zoning Resolution. A recorded site plan filed with Greene County Regional Planning and Coordinating Commission, also known as the record plan, shall serve as the revised site plan in the event of any incidental modification made due to the changes requested during the county subdivision approval process. Final approval is subject to approval by any agency or entity with review authority. That's a mouthful.
Thank you, though.
There you
It's
go.
very comprehensive. We needed that. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Time to take a drink of the pop.
Board, do you have questions that you'd like to ask staff at this time?
I just got one question. You're saying there's no HOA that's gonna be assigned, or is that still to be established?
That will still be established.
Okay.
And I'll leave the site plan up on the screen for anybody's
Okay.
reference.
And you're talking about the 50-foot setback that's going against Arlington Place. That's not gonna be green space. That's gonna be considered part of that as lots, right? So if
Correct.
So if I was to buy lot 63, my lot would actually butt up to there.
Correct.
But I wouldn't be able to put any structures or anything else in that 50-foot setback. Is that correct?
Not correct. So you could put any sort of accessory structures that would be allowed, but not primary structure.
Okay.
So that's a 50-foot setback for the house, but yet pools, accessory buildings like sheds and things could be put within that setback as allowed by code.
Okay.
But the 5 and the 15 between structures are not permitted to do that, correct?
I'm sorry,
The setbacks for 5 feet and 15
the side yard
feet-
setbacks?
Yes, those are not permitted to have those accessory buildings, correct?
They wouldn't have enough room. They would require a variance to be able to do anything, and that's pretty tight.
Yes,
I
I
mean, we
agree.
require 10 feet from the side and rear property lines for accessory structures, so you really have little room left to do anything.
Other questions? Okay, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
One so far. I did have a question about the covenant in the HOA. Actually, I have 2 questions. The traffic study pending, can you talk a little bit about that process so that everyone is aware how that works and why it's considered pending at this time?
Sure. With the traffic study, they went through several months of gaining all the information that they need for the traffic study. That was submitted. Once that was complete, the traffic study gets submitted to the Greene County engineer. At such time, the Greene County engineer queues it up and reviews it. That takes generally another month or 2 for them to review it and say, we don't agree with this, or we do agree with this, and they get comments back. And that, after those comments come back, then the group that's doing the traffic study then revises whatever is needed. Maybe it's additional length on a turn lane, or site distance issue, or something along those lines. Once those comments get addressed, it becomes resubmitted. It was resubmitted addressing all those comments. I just cannot tell you for 100% certainty that it was approved by the county engineer. The applicant may be, he may have gotten information. I requested that information over a week ago, and I have not got it from the
We have
county
not
engineer.
received it. So we've heard that before. That's why I was asking, and a lot of times what we hear is, and then it goes to Miami Valley Regional Planning for a final review again. And so I just wanted to make certain that I understood what that process was so that we're all aware. And then I wanted to ask about the 1.83 decision versus the 2.27 that was approved. Can you talk about that so that we understand which documents were guiding that decision and how that took place?
Are you talking about the density?
Yes.
Okay. So the density was approved at the trustee level at 2.5. So that was the document that I brought up originally, right here. So that was approved at 2.25. The plan came in at 2.27. Why the trustees went from the 1.8 land use plan, my best answer to that is, I don't know because I wasn't here.
Okay.
But I would assume that there was substantial evidence to say that they're gonna deviate from that. I couldn't tell you. I went back and I've listened to some of the things, but that was where they landed.
Okay.
I know the land use plan does talk about, markets and different things and allow some level of deviation from that. So that would be my understanding that they viewed it was pertinent to deviate from that. And basically, in the land use plan, when I went back to read it, it says something, and I have it bookmarked here.
And just so that I know which land use plan you're looking at.
The 2012 one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Under residential development, it doesn't really land on that 1.8. It says residential development has generally been 1.8 units per gross acre within the urban service boundary. So it didn't
Like, you have to
specifically
use
nail
this.
it
It's not
down,
mandated,
but it just
right.
said generally
Generally.
is that.
Okay, all right,
Hopefully that answers your question as best as I can answer it for you.
yeah, that's okay. Do any of you have any questions about
I
that?
got a couple more questions for you. So I know on the land use plan it says that, but I know on Article 5 it says 2.5 per density, is that
On
correct?
this one. That's what I'm trying to figure out. On which one are you saying it says that?
On Article 5 intent.
Well, because I'm asking, like, because we have this one, the 17.12.4 that talks about land use density not to exceed 8 dwellings per acre. So, but I don't know. I mean, they use a general 10 acres is 4.3 dwellings per acre.
I'm not
It's on page
where
124
of the zoning resolution or the land use plan?
of our zoning resolution.
Page 124, you said?
17.12.
Yes.
Yes.
So, I'm not confused. How do you figure that out this way?
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah.
So how does that figure out, yes?
Can you move your mic just a little?
Is it not picking up?
Yeah,
Away-
she's
away
having
from
trouble
me?
hearing. Yeah, there you go.
Is that better? Okay, so can we figure out what that is going to be based upon what the density will be with this? Like, what is the acreage?
Well, this is basically saying that it should not exceed 8 dwelling units per acre. And this one's at 2.27.
So what would that be based upon this? 8 dwellings per acre, so how many acres are in here?
8 dwelling units per acre would be 8 per acre.
No, I mean, how many acres are in the whole property?
Sorry. Let me pull out my documents here.
I think that was listed here.
Let's see, back of your agenda.
Well, what are the total dwelling units?
The total acreage is 36.97, and the total dwelling units, I said earlier, what, 84?
Yes.
Yeah.
Should come
So
up here,
84 divided by the 36.97.
Which is 2.27.
Should be 2.27.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. And Rick, what was?
I got a follow-up question for the access point from the fire department. Can we get some elaboration? I know Randy came back, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Randy, but can you elaborate the reasoning behind the extra access point that's required?
If you give me just 1 second, I think Mr.
Sure.
Mr. Earhart can bring up a couple slides. You do that first one first. Is that the first one?
That's the first one.
Okay. So basically, I'll start with the thoroughfare plan that's by Greene County engineer and RPCC. It gives the definition of a dead-end street. This is a street temporarily having only one outlet for vehicular traffic and intended to be extended or continued in the future. So I want to give some examples of streets or neighborhoods that are interconnected, and some of which are in the city and the township. And first of all, I want to just kind of explain that the fire department is no longer allowing emergency accesses. We have over 40 emergency accesses in the township and the city, and they're very, very difficult to maintain. Property owners are designed to maintain those. It's very difficult for property owners to maintain those properly. So we focused on having through accesses in between neighborhoods. And I'll give you 3 examples. 2 examples that are current and one that is proposed. This is within the city of Beavercreek, and if you notice that the north and south street there is North Fairfield Road. The east and west is Shakertown Road. Apple Valley is a neighborhood that's been established for many, many years, over 200 some odd houses in that plat, and it only had a single access from Newton to North Fairfield Road. So when Cedar Farms was proposed by the city, we required that access, which is the circle, or the 2 roads be connected, and it's a full access in there. Now, obviously, it gave secondary access to Apple Valley, but also provided secondary access for the Cedarbrook Farms development. There was no other way that they could push any kind of access anywhere else. So you want to go to the second one? The one that's most significant that I like to give the example of is Hunters Ridge and Hunters Point. As everybody knows, Hunters Point is in the township. Hunters Ridge is in the city, is in the incorporated. Hunters Ridge and Hunters Point was put together so that there are multiple accesses in both of those developments out to Beaver Valley Road. However, the neighborhood was designed to be all interconnected and woven in. And you can see by the 2 points that are circled that connect both of those neighborhoods, basically. 2 different kinds of housing complexes, 2 different types of lot sizes, everything like that, but they are connected that way. And then one example of a case that you guys saw not too long ago was to the west of Spindletop, and I'm sorry, McIntyre, thank you very much. When that area was being developed, it was required by us that there would be 2 means of access into that site, one of which is an existing road from the north and a road off of Spindletop. It wasn't, I know there was some disputes in the Spindletop area of why there needed to be another access secondary into that area, and we insisted or we required that those both of those accesses be maintained. So in full access, it's not emergency access. So does that answer your question?
Yep, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Mr. Grover, couple questions while you're up there.
Sure.
Can you explain exactly what an emergency access is and also why they're difficult to maintain?
Sure. Emergency access is just, they can vary. It's created from, to create 2 means of access into an area. They can vary from a paved bikeway to a 20-foot wide single access, let's say bikeway or multi-use path with pavers on either side. Typically, those emergency accesses have some kind of a barrier in between them. They can be gates, they can be removable bollards, they can be breakaway bollards or laid out bollards. that are sometimes locked. The issue that the fire department has is, it is the owner's responsibility, whichever one the property sits on, to maintain those, and they have not been maintained over the years. So whether the collapsible bollards are not in functioning condition, whether the gates are rusty and locks are not maintained, whether the roadway is, probably the biggest thing is the roadway is not maintained, or the emergency access itself, the ground, or the canopy or trees or whatever that might be surrounding that. Plus, in the true emergencies, for example, tornadoes or let's say snow events, typically they're found as places to pile stuff. Snow is probably the biggest thing. A plow truck on a private street will find that as a nice little place to plow a bunch of snow, and guess what? Emergency access is gone. And those are some of the struggles that we have with any emergency access that we have in Beavercreek.
Randy, there's Country Club of the North. There's that access there.
Yes, yeah, that's Country Club of the North, correct?
Yep.
So is the goal here to have 2 access points for this PUD? Just, just generally, or is it really necessary that there be one on the west side and one on the east side?
So what was proposed was a connection to the Arlington Place neighborhood. That's what's proposed, that's what we've seen.
So if there were 2 accesses on Alpha Bellbrook, would that satisfy the safety considerations?
It would be something that the fire department would consider, yes, yeah. Again, that's not what was presented to us. What's presented to us is this, and that would be required to make those connections between them. Again, personally, and obviously everybody has lived through the tornado, and we've seen personally conditions where maybe a situation like this has been put forward, and I'm trying to think of an example right off the top, where there's 2 accesses that are fairly close on a single road, and both of those accesses are basically blocked. So having those interconnected neighborhoods are important. Again, Hunter's Point is a great example of that.
So it's optimal to have them in different areas, but it's acceptable to have them on the same road?
Again, if there is something proposed, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think, I'm not sure. Did you have one? Go ahead.
Well, to go back to that, so, I know that I know there's a lot of consideration with that access point going into, Arlington Place. But if I understand this correctly, there is, the Greene County turned down putting 2 access points on Alpha Bellbrook, is that correct?
I am not sure if they turned that down or not. I know that
It wasn't proposed.
I don't think it was proposed.
Yeah.
So,
Can
We're
the-
just, we're leading off of what was proposed.
Okay,
Okay.
maybe that's more of a question for over.
correct.
We're getting there. We're almost there.
Yes, ma'am.
So the question that I had, and I think it was condition number 3 that you went to, talked about detrimental impact. Is that it? Maybe it's not that one. I'm sorry. Can you Control F and find, there it is, 5. Proposed development has no significant detrimental impact that outweighs the development's benefits to the community. So is there a definition for detrimental impact?
It's not defined within the zoning resolution. I think that's one of the things that you all have discretion to determine.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions?
I got one more question for
Okay.
Randy, I'm sorry.
Just getting the steps on.
Sorry, is that?
Go back to that well again.
So, just to clarify on the access points, I understand that I know you mentioned the tornado, and I lived over there in Wagner Trace on the tornado, and I know people that lived back in that area. And I know you guys had a hard time getting back to people. And even though there was multiple access points on the same road, in that particular case, it wasn't able to bring an access because it backs up against the highway. But it would have been more beneficial to you guys to get to people in an emergency situation, like the tornado that came through here, if there was another access point other than the main road going in.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that, again, given the tornadoes, we can do a lot of what ifs. There's examples of water main breaks or road closures of some sort or something like that, where that interconnectivity of neighborhoods is beneficial.
Okay, thank you.
Right?
Anybody else?
I'll come back.
That's all right. That's
I'll
all
wait
right.
till you sit down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't think we have any more questions for the staff. We are ready to hear from our applicant.
Good evening. My name is George Ober Jr. with the Overland Developer in Miamisburg. Even though the company's offices are in Miamisburg, I'm a Beavercreek Township resident. So we start with the site plan that everybody's pretty familiar with. I did want to address a question that came up from the zoning commission, asking perhaps why the trustees might have approved up to 2.5 units to the acre. Typically, townships, many townships have what they call transitional zoning. So if a piece of property is adjacent to a city or a municipality, a lot of times they'll allow some flexibility with zoning because it discourages the need for annexation. So I can tell you that directly across the street, we're developing a 50-acre property. It's in the city of Beavercreek, and it was approved for, I believe, 2.5 units to the acre. So, and they both fall in comprehensive land use plans that suggest that up to 3 units to the acre is permitted as far as comprehensive land use plans. So I just wanted to shed some light on why they probably consider a compromised density there. So, Ober Companies purchased the property in June of '23. And on January 22nd of '24, the property was rezoned from A1 agricultural to RPUD. Then on March the 18th, we submitted a specific site plan for consideration. And at the recommendation of staff, the site plan was tabled while we worked through some traffic studies. And those traffic studies were actually done in conjunction with the traffic study for the school also. So it took some time to sort that out, and we have had comments from the Greene County Engineer's Office and their consultant. We've responded to those comments and addressed all of them. And so they've not given us any comments since that point. We're assuming that basically it's an accepted study. They don't have a formal approval letter or anything like that that they send us. So after such, we submitted a new application on September the 17th of '24. So among others, as a condition of the rezoning, a maximum density of the development was set at 2.5 units to the acre. And this site plan proposes 84 lots at a density of 2.27 units to the acre. There's over 4.5 acres of open space within this plan. The proposed setbacks are consistent with the rezoning resolution, offering 30-foot front yard, 30-foot rear yard, 5-foot minimum side yard, with no structure closer than 15 feet on the side yards. Lots abutting the existing RPUD will have a minimum 50-foot rear setback. And the proposal is to phase this development over 4 total sections. Section 1 consists of 28 lots and should commence early in 2025. We estimate home construction will commence with a full build-out around fall, or construction will commence with vertical construction, home construction in the fall of '25. I should let you know that the staff has been very responsive and great to work with. Very comprehensive reviews and comments have gotten us to where we are. I think, as I previously mentioned, though, we have been delayed since March for traffic study purposes. And then last month, obviously, we were delayed for not being able to get an agenda approved. So we take no exception with the comments or conditions proposed by staff. And we respectfully recommend that you would either approve or deny the specific site plan at tonight's meeting. Happy to answer questions.
I got a question for you. When everybody's talking about the access points on this, so have you reviewed whether there's any possibility to put 2 access points on South Alpha Bellbrook?
we looked at, believe it or not, I've been doing this over 40 years. We knew this was gonna be an issue. So we had traffic engineers, our civil engineers study that. They recommend that it's not a safe situation because of those two access points being so close, that would have to be so close together. And it, with the de-acceleration and acceleration lanes that are being required or proposed by the traffic study, it just doesn't create a safe situation. Those de-accel and accel lanes are just too close together, so.
Okay. Thank you. And on the drainage, I see the drainage, that you went and did a drainage study on this, but there was no really any type of summary of what the drainage showed. Is that, because I know when we first saw this back in, I don't know when it was,
A while.
a while ago, there was a lot of concern about the drainage. There was constant drainage issues going on in Arlington Place still. So last thing, you know, anybody wants to do is add more drainage issues on top of the drainage issues that are still being resolved, and that plat's been there for a while. So can you talk to us about how the drainage study showed that these two basins is going to not put any stress on the already existing problems they're still trying to resolve in Arlington?
Yes, sir. So the Ohio Revised Code actually prohibits us from discharging stormwater in a greater volume or a greater velocity than pre-development. We understand there's a stream in the northeast corner.
Okay.
So the two basins are designed to catch water on either side of that stream and slow it down before it's released into the stream. So that's, I mean, our engineers were aware of that and carefully studied that, resulting in a two-basin design.
Okay, so those two basins, the drainage is gonna come out of your new development into that basin, and then once that basin fills up, it will drain into the
It does
stream.
slow, it naturally does drain into the stream now
Okay.
anyway.
Okay,
So we're just slowing it down on either side of the stream.
okay, okay.
Mr. Ober, do you know the distance that the PUD runs, approximate distance that the PUD runs along Alpha Bellbrook?
I can't make out the dimension. If it's on here, I don't know the specific answer to that.
You have to do a lot of add. You have to add it all up.
Is it on that bigger map back there? Is it easier to read on that bigger map? Or is there a way that we can zoom in on it? Is that dimensions on this?
I think
On your
he's
map here?
trying.
Oh, I
That's
see.
my guess. He's working on it.
Okay,
He has that thing you can measure stuff.
I know, I
There you
didn't go.
there you go.
That'll do it.
Should, I use it all the time.
You have to click on it.
Let me add that there's one other consideration to why the access points are where they are. As I mentioned earlier, we're developing the piece in Beavercreek directly across the street from this. And that had limited frontage on Alpha Bellbrook Road. There was really only one place to access that. And this development has to line up directly across from that.
Why does it have limited? Why is it limited? You said it had limited access?
Well, it
Tell
has-
me about
It has a single access because it has limited frontage.
limited frontage, okay.
So this development, as I said, would have to line up directly across from that. So really, the second access, if you would put one on Alpha Bell, would have to be in between perhaps the northern or southern point or property line on, as it connects with Alpha Bellbrook, and the middle connection is shown now. So you see how close those would have to be. I didn't give a good enough
Is it like
Well,
across,
that-
you mean across from where it is right now on the site plan? It would be like legit, like across from there? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
on the other side?
Yes.
The document that they showed
proposed
shows that.
entrance or access to Alpha Bellwood is directly across the street
From where this,
from the other development. And and they need to be directly across from each other for safety reasons. So we really don't have an option to move that because, excuse me, because of the limited frontage to the one on the other side of the street. And then that would mean, if the proposed one stays where it is, that would mean you would have to put another access point too close to this one.
So tell me about limited frontage. Tell me a little bit about that so it's more clear to me.
it's because of how narrow it is from there
Because
to
it's
there.
Possible to get the
Yeah, he's,
Green
that's,
County aerial that shows.
I was trying. This doesn't seem to be working very well.
Slow for me, wasn't very.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're having a problem on their end, but it's just not loading all the way. I can zoom into the area, but you won't really, you know,
That might help, because
let me find it here. Let's see where I'm at. 675, 35, there's that. Should be right around in,
Right.
it's not showing rows or anything. It's kind of difficult. There it is. Found it.
Yeah, it's.
There you
slow
go.
overall.
There's your picture,
property
anyway.
across from
It
it
doesn't
is
have
like-
lot lines or
like this.
anything.
It's really long and narrow,
Right here.
long and
Right
narrow.
here.
yeah.
so the piece that we're developing in the city is the Kubander property. The old horse farm.
Narrow.
Right here.
So it's like these, like that are long and that long, narrow little stretch right there.
Right.
So, Andy, I don't, on that website, I think if you,
It's just not loading all the way. It's, there's something wrong with it.
So and is that butting up then? That one's gonna have the out
well, here,
Too far.
here.
this shows you you got,
There it
because
is.
there's an existing house that's remaining here.
Mm-hmm.
So your developable points are between here and here. This site goes
Way back.
back to this point right here. So you've got just kind of a long and narrow site here. So the entrance to that development
It's right there.
is right here in the middle. And the entrance on the proposed plan is directly across the street from that. Does that make sense?
And then is
It
that one,
does.
where does that one connect to the other neighborhood? In that kind of middle area right there?
Where does this one connect to?
Uh-huh. Is that in the middle,
Connects to the neighborhood to the north,
to the north, right?
Two
there?
places, right?
in a couple of different locations, yes, 2 or 3 locations. At the existing
Is
stub
this
streets.
Russ or is this Russ?
I'm gonna refresh it and see if it happens
That's
to
Russ.
load better. I'm gonna refresh it and see if it happens to load better. If something's wrong with the
Back
county
over here, it's
system.
right here in this corner right here.
Not doing
can't
its
see
thing
it.
tonight.
They're gonna put a roundabout here as well, so if you put
We need to put a
multiple entrances
roundabout
in there.
right there.
From a traffic congestion standpoint, I wonder if you're talking about both
Where they put in the roundabout?
areas having access to that road right across the street from each other? What's the,
At the school.
is there gonna be stop signs or stoplight or what to manage the traffic?
No proposed traffic lights, there'll be stop signs obviously there. Stop signs coming from the individual developments, but not on Alpha Boulevard.
You mentioned turn lanes, access lanes. Who's requiring those?
Yeah, the county has already obtained funding to fund a traffic circle, if you will,
Around.
at
There it
Alpha
is.
Bell and Indian Ripple Road.
Hey,
So like a roundabout?
look at that.
Thank you, roundabout.
County engineers
Oh,
those
but
roundabouts.
not at the entrances, right? You said just at
It's got
the
the most
intersections?
evidence for
Of Alphaville
reduced
and Indian River.
fatalities, I guess, and traffic flow.
Here,
Right.
There's lot lines now. There we go.
yeah, now you can see the lot lines. And keep in mind, these are the points we're talking about. This house stays, remains, we don't own that. So you're really talking between these 2 points to put an access point in the middle. And the proposed access point is directly across from that.
And then the 3 farmhouses down below, south of that is all staying, correct? That's not any.
Those are not, no, we do
Okay.
not own those.
So you got access points coming out from them as well, right?
I'm sorry.
So their driveways feed
Yeah.
onto Alpha
They go
Belleville,
out.
okay.
Lord mercy. Okay, I have a question about this traffic study. Is it typical for you not to receive a response for that?
It's typical,
It's typical.
let me say the politically correct.
Please tell me what's going on here.
No,
It's
it's
been a long
pretty
time.
typical, and, you know, at this point,
Mm-hmm.
because there were no major comments, or minor comments, so the comments would pertain to possibly, once in a while you get something back that they might lengthen or shorten a deacceleration lane or an acceleration lane or a turn lane, but not the location. The locations have been hashed out, you know, for months. So, yeah, I don't. Put it this way, this was an issue with piece across the street. And so for a period of time, the city of Beavercreek would not accept the processing of that final development plan until
Yes.
they were satisfied, because they also participated in those meetings with
Yes.
the county. They were satisfied enough to approve us last month.
So we've seen this sort of thing before, and not understanding completely the process, sometimes we've gone, I guess that's the way it goes. I'm really trying to figure out how it goes because now I'm hung up on detrimental impact. And the only two things I've heard tonight, I'm just gonna tell you, the two things I've heard is drainage and traffic. Those are the only two things that I've heard. And that's for us to decide, I guess, what that means. But it seems like a long time to be waiting for traffic studies that we just go, okay, well, I guess it'll be okay because it has to go through Miami Valley Regional Planning next. I don't know that when have people that are going to be concerned about
You
it.
know, honestly, it's not always typical that you do a traffic study at this stage anyway. Typically, that's not done until the final engineering, and it's a part of that final engineering package, so, you know,
So
we
you're
knew
saying that
it was
you're-
gonna have to be done ahead of time anyway, so we went ahead and paid for the study to be done, but both the city and the county get another bite at that apple anyway, because those final plans, construction documents and drawings have to be approved as a part of the subdivision process.
There's your one across the street.
Yeah,
Oh.
yes, both of
No, I
them.
mean, there, it's on the screen if you wanted to reference it.
Can we
Oh,
get
I'm
to
sorry, yeah, that was the plan, thank you. That was the plan approved at the city last month.
And just so you know too, with Ms. Goff in her office,
Yes.
the engineer's office, if she is not happy with the responses, she won't allow it to go through until she gets the responses that she needs.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Ober?
Mr. Hill, did you have something?
No, thank you.
All right. So now this is the time that,
I think you got, he's with Mr.
oh, are you with Mr. Ober?
No, I'm with Arlington Place.
Oh, okay.
Am I allowed to talk now?
Oh, yeah, we're going to. Oh, we have to open it.
Give us
to
just a
the-
second.
Okay. I've never
So,
been to one of these meetings.
that's all right, that's all right. If I do my job right, I guide you through it. If I don't, we just laugh at me because I don't know what else to do sometimes to fix my oops. Okay, so this is the time when we open the public portion of the hearing. And given the time and given the number of people, 3 minutes sound okay to you guys? Does that seem reasonable?
You might poll and see how many folks are looking to speak.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's see. Just big, I need to see full hands. Oh, put them up high. Put them up high. Oh, no, you guys do what you do. No, I'm just kidding. All right,
So that's
Five or
1, 2,
six.
3, 4, 5.
5. We got,
5 is
Keep
doable.
in mind
Fine,
too,
let's do it.
Ann, that it's 7, not 8.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good, because I was like, is it really that late?
That clock doesn't
That
get
made me feel
changed.
so much
Two
better
things,
now.
we haven't figured out how to change the clock back yet, so we've lost that remote control somewhere.
Oh, that makes me feel better.
Secondly,
just
on
like-
your public hearing portion opening it up, I would like to point out that I received a few emails and I made copies of those for these
in here?
commission members. Some of them were received before the October meeting, I redid those, and some of them were received before this meeting.
How much time do you think you'll need to share those with us?
I'd like to
Got
share the
it.
new
Oh,
ones for
Garden.
sure.
You're back in.
I'd like to have the new ones. I started reading some of them, but,
They're new ones and they're both there.
well, the old ones, I mean, that was from before, so anything that's new, I would like to share.
They're all there.
I
They're-
mean, there's a lot. This one's from November 5th.
Mhm.
It's a big packet. That one's already been done, the 3rd.
Did I overlook Mr. Vargas? Did Mr. Vargas send one to you?
Yeah, they're in there.
Okay,
I
so these two
overlooked
can
it.
read the 5th and 6th one?
Yes. There was another one that was back from the 3rd that was, he emailed me today and said, make sure that mine's in there again. That's a single page. Just making sure that you knew that they were there.
Yeah,
They'll probably be referenced. I'm sure some of those folks might be here tonight.
okay. Given that, I think we could go for 4 minutes, is why I was asking a show of hands. And what happens is, when you are ready, I'll ask for those that are for the application to come up. And then I'll ask for those that are opposed, and then those that are just interested in talking because they want us to hear something. At some point in time, if there are too many and we are getting to data saturation, or we're getting to a point where we're hearing the same thing over and over again, I'll say if you have anything different that you'd like to share, then I'll do that. But when you come up to the podium, if you please state your name and address and say it slowly and distinctly, because we have people who are taking notes, and we need to make certain that we can hear well when we listen to the tape. And once we close the public portion of the meeting, then it's closed. Okay, that means that you won't be able to speak anymore. So those who, I would like to go ahead and open the public portion of the meeting, and it's 7:03. And those who are for the application, could I see maybe anybody who is for the application come up to the podium? Okay. Those who are against the application?
Okay, just so you know,
Mm-hmm,
I've got it set for 4 minutes.
okay,
At 3:45, it will give a ding.
okay.
We did it, uploaded an app today.
Oh, good.
And then at the end of that, you'll get multiple dings, which means you're done.
Done. So pay attention to the
Done
dates.
or-
Yeah, like a panicky ding, like.
My name is Rick Miller, 2629 Thomas Jefferson Drive, Beavercreek Township, 45434. I live in a neighborhood that's adjoining the proposed subdivision, Arlington Place. And I would just like to, I think you guys covered everything really thoroughly so far. I would just like to make what I believe is requests from the whole neighborhood that already exist. And before, I'd like to say also that I believe we all have the same goals here, is to keep Beavercreek Township a beautiful and desirable place to live, and a township and not a city, which means it's a little bit different. And I believe that the new owners of the proposed subdivision would agree with everything I'm gonna say too. Number one, they don't want their neighborhood to be a GPS shortcut cut through no more than we do. All the people that are gonna buy these houses don't want that, and that's our main goal, we don't want that. And I know neighborhoods all around us in Kettering, this is a real thing, where GPS cut-through shortcuts, the GPS gives you, there's a Glen Heath Road in Kettering, 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. The police have to keep a flashing speed, what your speed is sign on that road all the time, because people are going through there 40, 50 mile an hour, because my own GPS tells me this is a great shortcut from Wilmington Pike to Stroop Road. And we don't want that to happen to our neighborhood. And this is what's gonna happen if we don't have some kind of just emergency access. Because they're building a high school right next to us that's gonna create a lot of traffic. And our neighborhood wasn't built to have that traffic. They're gonna be 90-degree turns with houses only 40 feet offset of this GPS shortcut, and we don't want that. And if you wanna do a real quick common sense traffic study, just drive through our neighborhood. I think the green space is great. There are 8 emergency access spaces within 5 miles of our neighborhood. I emailed them to you, guys have it, sorry, I'll pay you for the mic. There are 8 of them that already are in existence, and probably 4 or 5 of them are green. So if they can grandfather in or make an exception for density from 1.8 to 2.27, I think we can get an exception for green space emergency access. And if not, then give us a paved space. There are 3 paved emergency access spaces within 5 miles of our house. One has a chain, or 2 of them have chains across them, one of them have a gate, but you can't just drive through them. And this is easy to do, it's revenue neutral for Mr. Ober. We appreciate Mr. Ober, appreciate the density exception he's already given us, appreciate his investment in Beavercreek Township, but we just want to keep our township setting. I've lived there 21 years, really nice neighborhood, really quiet neighborhood, just like to stay that way. I'm done before you 4 minutes.
You are.
Oh, and one other thing, Mr. Varga, who lives on that 50-foot setback, thank you for that. Can we have a tree line there? I mean, I have there's in between Shakertown and County Line Road, there's a neighborhood that has, and you guys have this on one of my papers, like there are all kinds of tree buffer zones between a bunch of neighborhoods in Beaver Creek already. Why can't we have that? You've done it for a bunch of other, Beaver Creek has already done it for a bunch of neighborhoods, and they can do it for us too. Even if we just get a tree line, it doesn't even have to be like, 100-foot or 80-foot wide. I think that's a reasonable request. And Mr. Varga, they don't give him the 50-foot setback to that last house right here. The 50-foot setback cuts off right here, and he doesn't get it. And I don't think that's fair to Frank Varga. I'm done, thank you.
Thank you. Next. And let's make sure she has time to reset the timer.
No, I got
Okay, got it?
And it
Okay.
starts after you give your name. Okay, you're fine.
Good evening, my name is Megan Hart, I'm at 78 James River Road and, in Arlington Place. We've been living there for a while. I have 2 children, one who's 16 and going to be driving on her own here very shortly. And I have a 7-year-old boy who's in 2nd grade, and we're planning on staying here. We moved here after 21 plus years in the military. We bought in the township because it was the township and because we fell in love with it, doing what we thought was right for our kids in this community. And we plan on staying here for 30 years. Plus, I'm not gonna up and leave to Florida even. I've been there, done that. I have a major concern with the cut through. I think you're gonna have the same thing. I'm gonna hit some different things from what Mr. Miller hit. We have to walk to my son's bus stop every morning. We're crossing that road multiple times to do that. Sometimes I take my dog with me. Every morning I'm watching people in this neighborhood walking their dogs, walking for exercise. There is always someone out and about when the weather is nice. On the weekends, we've got kids. In the evenings, we've got kids on bikes on those roads. They're not supposed to be using the sidewalks. If you connect that road, we are going to be detrimentally impacting their health and safety and welfare. I already have enough anxiety about trying to keep my child safe in this neighborhood, as calm as it is. If we increase that traffic pattern, I don't even want to imagine what could possibly happen, because James River has got a lot of slow and blind turns, and there are people who park on the street already. If we're gonna start doing through traffic, especially with possibly a lot younger generation, when and if that high school goes in, we're gonna hit that. He talked about, I saw it on there, but the plan was always to connect to a neighborhood and out there. 22, 24 years ago, when they were planning Arlington Place, they could not, I think, have envisioned that gigantic high school that I believe will eventually be built. I know the levy didn't pass this time, but the land has been purchased, the land has been set aside. I think that is the future that we're looking at. They did not intend that massive density to be coming through on a residential street with those limited sightlines. Also, from these traffic studies and the site surveys and everything that I'm hearing, my questions were, when they're doing the traffic studies, did they base them solely off of what was submitted by Mr. Ober? Everything that I've heard seems to indicate that people respond to what is submitted, not the what ifs or what if there's a better plan. to me, my impression that everything was submitted by Mr. Oberer was to their benefit, to make the easiest solution and possibly most cost-effective solution, especially incorporating their other plans across the street. Not to the benefit of us as residents, not to the most sensible approach to safety. It was what's best for him. I appreciate that he lives in the township, but he's not gonna be living in those communities. He's not gonna be dealing with the aftermath. How are we going to continue? There's one rather odd little speed bump on here. So someone seemed to make some kind of consideration that we're gonna have the traffic. That speed bump, the placement seems like a sop to our conscience. We're gonna need things like that. Are we gonna need to put them on James River? Who pays for that? How are those site studies done? When they did the traffic studies, did they actually consider traffic through the residential neighborhood? Or did they just simply consider South off of Bellbrook based on the existing plan? Ingress, egress. It's mentioned before, they just need multiple ingress, egress. Obviously, you can have them onto the same road because Hunter's Ridge and Hunter's Point, all ingress, egress onto the same main road. It is doable. I know it hasn't been considered because it wasn't placed in front, to my knowledge, of the committee.
It didn't go off.
It didn't go
for
off,
some
so
reason.
I will be done. That sounds about 4 minutes. Thank you.
I don't know what happened,
Thank
my
you.
little dinger thing isn't working.
Is the
We're so
volume up?
excited to hear this.
We're gonna go to-
I haven't touched the volume. I have not touched the volume.
Now you have to do it on your own. Ding.
Ding, ding. Thanks.
Would it be possible to bring up
Thank you.
an overview of what Arlington Place looks like for this?
I can bring up the aerial
Thank you.
Yes.
if it's working.
Are we allowed to ask more questions based on their comments?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Are you ready for the
I'll
next
come to
question?
the end.
There's Arlington Place.
Thank you.
Are you ready for the next? Are you waiting?
I'm
I'm
waiting
just
for just a minute. Pull that.
Is your
Where are
dinger
the
ready?
Emergency ones that you were talking about.
It's a very personal question.
No,
It's not my
you said there were
phone, so I
separate
can't
emergency
say.
ones that were
He was
already-
talking about not.
So you have
and
two
surrounding it
access
and within 5
roads and
miles.
they are on two different roads, right? One on Factory and one on Indian Ripple.
So you can't.
That's the concern for the through traffic and the GPS is that people are gonna be using our neighborhood to cut through the factory and cut down Indian River.
But that can happen now, right?
Mr. Miller already touched on
That can happen now, so if your GPS sees it, then
No.
They can only do it like right there, but why would you?
they
wanna
can go in
Factory
Factory Road and
go
back
to
out and back
Jamestown?
out into Indian Ripple if my GPS says there's a car accident or there's traffic that's heavily congested there. And it's gonna show me an alternate route through Colonial Place and down on James River Road and out on Indian Ripple.
I can reply to questions,
Oh, yeah.
or are we going?
I'm
No,
sorry, am I
hold on a
going out of
minute. No,
turn?
you, no. Mr. Hill also asked, is it okay to ask questions? And so, just for protocol purposes, Dawn, what is the most orderly approach to this? Because I, don't-
In terms of asking questions to residents?
yes.
I mean, you can ask it while they're up there. I mean, that's sort of up to you how you want
Okay.
to
I wanted to make
address
sure.
that.
Could
but
you
yeah.
come back up to the podium? I think that Mr. Porter and Mr. Hill may have questions for you, and I think I even heard one out of Jeff
I
down
appreciate,
here.
I understand what you're saying, but we've got a community, and I understand that they're grandfathered in, and eventually it's gonna be better. Just up into your river, we've got one housing development community that's been there longer than I've lived in Beavercreek, the past 7 years, that only has one current ingress and egress. Because the eventual plan for safety is to join it into a, we'll say, higher cost building neighborhood going in, and the eventual plan is to join them, and it was been grandfathered in under previous guidance for the county for ingress and egress purposes. So we've got communities right now that only have one ingress and egress, and they're allowed to operate and are under health and safety. So we can what if this all night. We can compare communities and ticky-tack this all night. What I'd really like to know is, why weren't these considerations taken place before this plan went up? Again, it went with what was easy, not with what has to happen. It seems there are solutions that are available that could benefit both the new proposed community and maintain our community the way it is, our development the way it is. there appear to be solutions to that problem if people are willing to work towards that. That would benefit both of the
Sorry.
residences, as we
Didn't
mentioned,
click.
we're all trying to avoid that. You asked me something else about the cut through. I will say, I have never seen that. That's about all I can answer you. Could they? Sure. People can do a lot of things. It's not faster. That you come up, it's so much faster to go to just down the factory road and make that right than it is to climb, because this appears very flat and very easy right here on black and white and 2D. It's not. That entire climb up Colonial is a hill. You can't even see it. I've actually almost been hit multiple times because there's a current construction of a home on the corner right there. And people are, if we have just the extra, one extra construction vehicle parked there, it's bad right now. And then you add additional traffic, additional drivers.
Okay.
It doesn't seem to benefit anyone other than who's
Is your
spending the least amount of
question
money and
been
time on
answered?
it. But there was another question, I'm sorry, I missed it.
It wasn't really a question, it's just more of a comment, and I think you're right, you're probably not seeing that yet. But I bet you will when that school gets built, because if you got a kid that's running late for school, and he can bypass it and save 30 seconds off his time, he's gonna cut through that. I almost guarantee that's gonna happen.
Okay, and again, I
That doesn't
don't
mean
know-
it's
But
right.
again, we can play the what if, I'm just playing the devil's advocate here, that you do have a cut through already,
those kids-
right? And we've heard the fire department say that in situations, there are places in Beavercreek that don't have that cut through. And the example of that tornado, they couldn't get back to people
I was here for
because
that
of it.
too, I
So,
understand that. There can be a situation where a tornado is bad enough that it wipes out all of our access,
Exactly.
all of our cut-throughs. Those are
But
much.
that's why the
we
fire
can
department,
what if this to the nth degree. But what we need to look at is day-to-day, the realities of day-to-day living in this. There's always the chance that disaster can take over and rule our lives. But that's not, I would think historically, what people plan for when it comes to things like this. The very faint chance that something might happen. To me, I'm looking at the very real chance that this is gonna change the entire face and life of our neighborhood.
Okay.
don't get me
For
wrong.
no good reason, when there are alternatives that appear to be out there that were never considered because Mr. Ober didn't submit them. I might be misunderstanding the process, but to me, it seems that everything was stemmed from the proposal. They took the proposal as it was and considered, for traffic studies, this is what was proposed, and so this is how we would respond to that. If they didn't receive a proposal with alternative ingress and egress on South Apple Beaverbrook, how do we know if it would be acceptable or not?
Well, I see what you're saying. And don't get me wrong, I completely understand what you guys are saying about the cut through. I've lived in a plat in Wagner Trace over in the city of Beavercreek. When they built it,
Across from the park.
and Stedman Lane, when I first built it, it was a dead end and they eventually made it a cut through. And I'm telling you, people came around that corner on two wheels sometimes. But a lot of it was people in my neighborhood doing it, not people cutting through. A lot of people were people in my neighborhood doing it. So it wasn't,
Also,
our
a lot
people
of
in,
cut-through traffic.
our people in southern,
I can talk to that if you want, I lived on that
no.
for 5 years.
I'm saying I understand what you're saying, that's what I'm trying to say.
I'm fired up.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
what you
you.
guys are doing here, I
All
really
right.
do. But.
And I certainly appreciate, I'm just saying, I appreciate,
This
I'm
isn't my
not trying to be
property,
the
this is my kids.
bad guy here, so,
Got it.
Any
Thank
questions?
you.
thank you.
Next person in opposition, please. Don't be shy.
Never more hands.
Rick Johnson, 2622 Patrick Henry Drive.
Okay.
Thank you, whoever pointed out that the clock was wrong. I thought I dozed off. Right? I appreciate these meetings a lot because I've just started to come to them and I learn quite a bit every time I show up.
Keep coming.
And I appreciate some of the great questions. I share your concern over why this traffic study seems to be lagging, being what we would consider to be, as you can hear, a relatively important impact to what's going to happen. with these neighborhoods when traffic and patterns start to change when roads are opened up. And so I think most of the concerns are the ones that have been voiced already, that we don't want additional traffic in an area that may be already overloaded, especially with the school and other things coming. One thing that we did talk about was two ways to get out to Alpha Bellbrook from the neighborhood as opposed to using our cut through on James River. There are other alternatives, and one I think would be to come out to Indian Ripple through the other direction as opposed to coming through James River. And that would be another way to have two that aren't on the same road. I share that concern with having them both going to the same main exit point because of the issues. I also enjoyed hearing the concerns about emergency access. I mean, you might not think about that, but it's something to consider. But we do have an alternative that they could come out to Indian Ripple and Alpha Bellbrook as opposed to coming through James River. So I wanted to just make that point. The other thing that we have noticed, even in our neighborhood, when we talk about other infrastructure pieces that go along with this development, I think just recently there were posts on Facebook that people lost their power. And they said it would be back soon or back in hours. And we don't know why it went out. But it does happen to us occasionally. It probably seems less often than you would imagine, but the power will just go out. So we wonder about the power infrastructure and some of the other pieces of that sort of thing that need to be developed and considered first before there's a large number of houses and an expansion in the area to take and tax that power system even more. I know there are probably going to be other concerns, but those are the two that I wanted to bring up. And again, I wanted to thank the panel here for asking their questions and raising some of the concerns we have as well. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Mhm. Anyone else in opposition?
Hi, I'm Ann Dixon, 2630.
Can you just get her voice up?
Excuse me, could you talk just a little bit louder?
Or closer?
Ann Dixon, 2630 Patrick Henry Drive. I would like to say, in fact, speaking for everybody behind me from our neighborhood, that we all feel that this is detrimental to our neighborhood, to the new neighborhood, Walnut Ridge. And I'm thinking that our neighborhood does have many families with children, young children. I'm thinking the new neighborhood, Walnut Ridge, is gonna have even more young families, just, because of the kind of houses that are going in and out. And so they're gonna have even more kids on bicycles and having basketball hoops in the street and all that kind of thing. Even our neighborhood does, and I kind of wanna speak for those families too, that I'm sure they would not want their neighborhood to be a cut-through. And so I'm feeling that they would think it would be detrimental to their neighborhood also. And if you could.
Yes, ma'am.
Put the picture back up of our neighborhood,
Sure.
please. So the cut through would, you know, to visualize it here.
Excuse me, ma'am, you're gonna have to really talk loud.
I have to say, I'm her husband and I can't even understand her half the time.
Yeah. You gotta, because there's no
No, I just
microphones
wanted to-
down there,
Yeah.
so you're gonna
We
have
need
to
do
speak
something
really
different with
loud.
that.
And just yell at him.
So to visualize it here, the road would be going through, winding around here, whatever, but then going through here and coming through here, coming down here, and then either going out there. Oops, I touched it.
Oh, I did it. I'm sorry. If I click it, this mouse is super sensitive, so I apologize.
Or coming out here and going down here to Indian Ripple. So So here's the stub here. So this curve here, we live down here on Patrick Henry, so I drive this all the time. There's the neighbor right here has a pickup truck right on this bend that he always has parked in the street, because I think he can't probably fit it in his garage or whatever. There's always a pickup truck here. There's always 2 or 3 or 4 cars parked along James River here. And it's, you know, you're kind of having to drive like this carefully to get through there safely. So that's an issue. And the other that, you know, is definitely a problem as far as traffic flow and safety. And the other thing, I know this is a moot point, it's kind of a hypothetical thing, but I still think it needs to be mentioned. If the developer of our neighborhood, Clemens, if he had never put that stub in there, and those were houses all along here, somehow there would have been something figured out for this neighborhood to have access points elsewhere, because they couldn't go through our neighborhood. So somehow it could have been figured out without our Patrick Henry stub. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
I've been to pretty much all of these meetings. Oh, Terry Dixon, 2630 Patrick Henry Drive. I've been to all of these meetings, and I went to the last trustee meeting too. And I think you've heard from our neighborhood, our residents. I think we've made ourselves pretty clear. And I'm amazed the number of people that we have here that feel the same way. We want to protect our neighborhood. And I feel that our voice has been heard. I was a little bit disappointed with the trustee meeting. This is just my opinion. I feel like the decisions were made before we even got there to the trustee meeting. I feel that was under the table. I really do. And it would not surprise me if Mr. Oberg himself knew what the decisions were going to be before that. And I don't know that for fact, but it's just my gut feeling, because I felt like we weren't really important at that meeting. But I think you've heard from us in our neighborhood. I think you've heard how much we love our neighborhood. And I agree with Ann. If that road had never been built before by Clemens, they would have to find a different way to do that. And so I'm just wondering if there is another way, that if you have to have 2 access points.
Thank you.
Laura Skousen, 115 James River Road. We've lived
Laura,
here 17.
a little louder.
A little louder?
Yes.
We've lived here 17 years. Clemens told us that the reason they put that stub is because he wanted to buy that land. But then it wasn't available. And he also said he didn't think that the tree farm would ever sell. So I do find that what they've said, I agree. I don't think Clemens ever would have put that stub there had he not been able, if he had been able to develop that himself. And the other thing I would hope that you guys will do is check out the emails you've been sent. I know my husband sent one, a very detailed one. Frank Varga, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here tonight, has put a lot of effort into this. He sent a proposal for, as has been brought up, for different access roads. One on Indian Ripple, as well as 2 possibly on Alphabell Brook. And then a concern that I didn't have until tonight is if the road has to match up, the access road, to the neighborhood that's already been started on the other side of Alphabell Brook, that's even more traffic that's gonna cut across and come through. And I hadn't thought about that until tonight, so I don't understand why they have to match up, but I'm not a professional in that. But I do agree that Clemens would not have ever put that stub if he wasn't gonna be the one developing. And then the density wouldn't have been a problem, because he would have kept with the density that our neighborhood is. So, anyway, you guys
Thank
are
you.
awesome. Thank you.
Next.
Hi, I'm Rob Presley, 2634 Thomas Jefferson Drive. I agree with many of the points that have already been raised, so I just want to make one quick point of my own. looking at the criteria to approve this plan, I was interested in when staff put up number 11, where it talks about the development being required to be a functionally independent environment. So can a development really be functionally independent if it's required to be connected to another subdivision in order to maintain egress? And I wasn't able to find a definition of functionally independent in the document, so it seems like that's kind of up to you as a board to look at that and decide. But I'll just also add that I really appreciate you listening and your dialogue with us, and also the work of the staff to work with Mr. Ober and to help the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Another person? Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Ellie Sullenberger. I'm at 139 James River, so I am the house that it connects the little stuff. I've just got a couple things. The first one is we talked about the cut through. That's the big thing. I just wanted to point out that there's a bus stop at the corner of Patrick Henry and James River, and that bus stop is 8:20 in the morning. That is exactly when people are going to be cutting through there for the high school, and I have a 5 and a 7-year-old that are sitting back here that are at that corner along with 4 other kids. So this isn't just people cutting through, this is safety for those kids that are on that corner. And if we already have one cut through that you've pointed out, why are we adding another one or the opportunity for another one when there are other places that can be the second access to the new development? Doesn't Ober own the lot that there's a big for sale sign at the corner of Indian Road pulling out to Beavercreek? Can't they just use their land that they already own and change it to residential and put that road through there for the second one? That would be getting rid of one of their lots. I understand that, but at least you would have the safety aspect. And then the second is not about the cut through at all, but talking about property values. And the starting price of the homes that are for sale on Ober's website are $180 a square foot. The one that is listed at the corner of Patrick Henry and James River is $258 a square foot. Has there been any consideration for if we do extend between Arlington Place and the new development, making some kind of premium lots where it's not such sticker shock going in between Arlington Place and the new development? Like putting a larger lot there, or something basically in my backyard. I think that is all I have. Oh, actually, the last thing. My family business, we have done some gates, and there's actually one we're doing right now in Beavercreek where they needed the emergency access through. So even if they do a second one, we could still put up a gate. It would cost about $50,000. There would be a Knox box on there that when emergency needs to get through, they call dispatch releases an opening, and then somebody from the fire department comes, unlocks it, leaves it open so that the emergency crews can get through. That would add to the, I'm sure the word right now, but of our neighborhood, where if you had, instead of just, a gravel pit, or you had just a rope or whatever, you had a nice gate there. The aesthetics, sorry. And that is an option, which is about a $50,000 cost, and is being done about 20 minutes away in between a custom home developed neighborhood and one that's not so custom. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask Mr. Grogan a question? Is that? You said we don't really do.
Did you say Grogan or Ober?
I'm sorry, I said Grogan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You said we don't really do emergency cut-throughs anymore. Is that a matter of just general policy, or is there some regulation, or?
It's general policy.
Okay.
If a street to be put interconnected properly, then we don't consider it. If there's unusual circumstances, then we would consider it. But this is a pretty straight through, normal circumstance.
There's no possibility of anything that would satisfy the concerns?
Again, we can propose it. Something was provided on the plan that showed a speed table, and that's what's approved. Again,
What is that?
I I'm gonna say we would be highly against any kind of emergency access. Again, the maintenance side of that, who's going to maintain it? You know, is there gonna be a homeowner association? Is there gonna be, who's gonna maintain that properly?
Okay.
So that was my question. They don't, the proposed PUD does not have homeowners association or covenants established at this time.
The township is not gonna take care of it.
I hear you. My question is, what's the name of the neighborhood that you all are part of?
I'm sorry?
What's the name of the neighborhood?
Arlington Place.
Arlington Place. Are you homeowners association? Okay, that was my question about that. Regardless of that part of it, when you heard about the gate, have you used those kinds of gates? And what are the pros and the cons of them?
Correct. There are gates similar to that around Beavercreek in the incorporated, unincorporated area, maybe not necessarily in the unincorporated area. Maintenance is the big thing with them. And then in addition to that is, the snow removal, or I'm gonna kind of encompass maintenance in all of that.
Okay.
If we do have snow removal, is that entire path or that area completely cleared of snow? Most of the time it is not. In my experience of 15 years being in the prevention bureau, most of the time they're not.
So have you had to use them, like in an emergency circumstance?
It depends. The tornado, I think, has presented some of the facts that we have had to have them accessible, which we did not. And specifically, Garden View was one.
Okay.
Garden View was established in the 60s, 70s, single access point off of Grange Hall Road. When the promenade was developed in the 90s, I'm gonna throw out, I can't remember.
Something like, yeah.
Yeah, something like in the 90s. It was a single roadway that went down, and emergency access was, I was not available, or I was not working in the bureau at the time. Emergency access was proposed. That is one of the issues that we deal with. It's one of the maintenance issues. And in the tornado situation, it would have been a vital artery into that development, and it was not maintained. That has a gate also.
Okay.
And just, if I can add, I think just when this discussion was had, when they came up with the, sort of made a change to the policy, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, the NFPA, which guides they require the double access, right? That's a requirement now, currently. And what happens when you have these with emergency accesses and say a homeowners association is set to maintain them, when you're looking at developments that 25, 30, 40 years down the line, very often those homeowners associations don't continue on, and that's where the problems really begin.
Okay.
That criteria is the fire codes.
Fire code,
Yeah,
sorry.
And what is NFPA, National
National Fire Protection Association. but
Association? Okay.
It's in the fire code.
Okay, got it. And are they responsible for the matchup in the roads, or is that someplace
That
else?
would be the county engineer.
The county engineer, and is that a requirement for the county? For the matchup of the roads?
The two entryways across from each other.
Oh, okay, so
Okay.
I'm not an engineer.
We don't know. Got
Not
it.
claiming to be one.
Okay.
Just the experience that I've had is that's pretty typical of what I've seen, not only on the incorporated side, on the city side, but also on the township and the county engineer, is that a lot of that is done for, just to prevent more and more
Cuts.
cuts into the road. Yeah,
They will
correct.
make every effort to align, especially new ones coming on at the same time.
It makes
And I
sense.
know-
I just wondered if there was somebody that was overseeing that,
Yeah.
if it was you all.
That would be the county engineer.
Okay.
I know it makes sense. Is it necessary?
I'm sorry, what's
I know it makes sense, but is it necessary
for,
to have one access point across from the other?
I'm not a county engineer. I know, and again, I'll give you an opinion. I know that roadway has some elevation changes in it. And again, my experiences with just knowledge that site distances are sometimes issues that engineers take into account, civil engineers take into account. I know that, that's kind of an odd road right there. So, again, I'm not an engineer, and that's what was originally proposed, so, if it is taken back to the county engineer, that would be, I think it's a county road, so that would be up to her to
Correct.
decide those features, right?
Right.
Have you closed the public?
Well, so safety-wise,
No,
because you
not
are
yet.
familiar with safety, is it safer to have two roads butting out together, traffic coming out onto a two-lane road that has a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, or two that are staggered?
Yeah, I'm not. an
Safety-wise,
engineer.
you have no idea safety-wise?
No,
With accidents and with traffic patterns and with having two left-hand turns going into, I can't imagine you wouldn't be
yeah,
familiar.
I do not know.
There's a
I know
relative,
that-
sorry.
Again, I'll give an opinion of experience that I've had on the, working a lot with the city engineer, is that they try to align those roads because of the offset. So again, I've seen that tendency to try to align roads. And one in particular is on Indian Ripple Road. As Trinity comes out on Indian Ripple Road, there's another road that sits south of that to the west that is staggered, and it's a crest of a hill, and they're trying their hardest to try to
Align
align
it.
those. So,
I know that all the engineers, county, local, state especially, try to use the ODOT's traffic control manual, which is going to address all those sorts of things. I don't know what's in there, but they're gonna use that as a very strong guideline for the development of this kind of stuff.
I know of a neighborhood on Trayvine, it's actually in Fairborn. It's called the Bluffs at Trayvine. And Trayvine is a very similar road to, probably heavier traveled. And I know that there is a main entrance, and then a short, very short distance up the road is a sort of a small entrance, a second entrance. So I think it's doable. It's just a matter of somebody sitting down and doing it.
right, and again, this is what was proposed.
I get it, no,
No.
you can't consider what's not in front of you.
Right, exactly.
For what's commercial, I've seen right in and right out, but again, I'm not an engineer.
So, just to clarify it, I have not closed the public portion of the meeting yet. I'm completely aware, but we've got his attention right now. Over and over again, we've heard it's what's proposed, and that's all that we can look at is what's proposed, right? When the documents come, emails come from that aren't here, come forth, do you look at any of those as a staff? Have you looked at those before and considered those as part of the package?
The documents that come for,
So for example, we've referred, Mr. Varga on several attempts has given some solutions or some proposed some changes that he would like for us to look at. Have you all looked at those as a viable solution with regard to the proposal?
I've reviewed them. Have I done anything else with them? That's kind of where we're at here. is to
Well, I
decide-
respect that. I didn't know
Yes.
if anything additional, like if you had gone back and done some work with Mr. Ober, for example.
No, I have not.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that Mr. Ober stated, and you could ask him again about this, was he had two issues with the entryways along Alpha Bell Brook.
Yes.
One was the alignment for the subdivision across the street, and the other one was having those two and their acceleration, deceleration lanes not long enough between each other.
Right.
Those were the two issues that he addressed. Once again, we're not traffic engineers.
Right, I hear that.
And I think that's where some of this proposal stuff comes in, that these were items that were proposed by traffic engineers via the traffic study.
And to clarify, process for the traffic study is on the developer to purchase that traffic study from an outside agency? Is that what happened?
When it
Or
was
it's-
requested, yeah.
Yes, when it's requested, and that's the process that took place with this,
Correct.
correct? Got it.
I think that, if I could add, the county engineer requested a lot of additional information from the city schools, from the city of Beavercreek, if I'm not mistaken.
Trying to tie in that entire there's
Sure.
work proposed at that entire intersection.
And was that, I guess,
That was all-
talking out of school, but was that all so that there could be funding for that roundabout? Or no, it's just because the proposal came through?
I think this proposal came through, there was the potential of the school, there was a lot of potential for the county engineer to consider additional traffic control at that intersection. It seems like the preferred method that the county engineer has taken would be roundabouts. Because every time something comes along, it's, well, we'll look at a roundabout there. So, like them or not, that's what seems to be here to stay.
Yeah, and there's, I think even it was required that there's easements available in the commercial property.
Correct.
Okay,
For the roundabout.
all right. Thank
Right
you.
ways.
Does anybody else want his time before we move?
Not yet.
I don't think this is for him, but there was a statement made that Mr. Varga isn't getting the same setback as people, I mean, can we confirm that?
Yeah, we'll look on there. And let me explain that a little bit.
Yes, please do.
I'm sorry, let me get to the drawing where it zooms in. Yeah. I'm gonna go to the monitor here so everybody can see. So here's that 50-foot setback line that continues up until this property, and this is the Varga property. And what happens is that setback line wraps around. The requirement from the trustees' resolution was that it would be a 50-foot rear yard setback on those properties. How a rear yard is measured on a corner lot is a 50-foot radius from this point out. So they're technically meeting that requirement. That is gonna have a 50-foot rear yard setback, and that was why it continues around that arc. Does that make any sense to you at all? Or do I need to re-explain it?
No.
Okay.
That's just how the zoning resolution
That's how the
signs.
zoning resolution defines side and rear yard. So if this was to continue, is this the rear yard even though that it's the side yard of this house? Where is the side yard? That's why it's an arc off that corner. Sorry.
But does it abut the other PUD?
Yes, it abuts the other PUD.
What this says is, on lots that share a side yard, 30 feet, except lots that abut the existing RPUD, which shall be a minimum of 50 feet setback. If it abuts it, should it have it?
Setback, correct?
Yeah.
There's a,
Rear yard setback, which it does meet by definition of the zoning resolution.
Does it
So-
practically mean, like an
So
actual
for-
living, like I'm living here, they're living there?
So, for instance, Mr. Varga's rear yard is this arc continued on around. If you look here at these rear yards, see it follows that arc because they're quarter lots.
So there is 50 feet
There's a 50-foot rear
at
yard.
the point of abutment.
For the rear yard.
Right.
The 50-foot rear yard is there.
Okay.
Correct.
Explain about the front yards.
It has two front yards. This is the front yard, that's the front yard. This is a side yard, this is a side yard, the rear yard is that radius.
So it's.
Yeah, but there's not a side yard to the,
Smaller area.
to the adjacent property. It's a backyard.
Yeah,
Because this house is oriented that way. It
Yes.
doesn't matter how your house oriented. For this one, this is the front yard, that's the front yard.
and what looks like the backyard is actually the side yard.
Correct. This is his side yard, that's his rear yard.
Okay, all right. Let's pause now, because I haven't closed the public portion of the meeting, and I think that there's probably some more discussion or some more comments. So, is there anyone else who's opposed that has not spoken that would like to come to the podium?
Oh, it hasn't dinged once tonight, you guys are too
lucky
fast.
time, maybe.
You've been too fast. Okay, name and address.
All right, Deb Kopecki, I'm at 119 North Alpha Bellbrook Road, surrounded by Ober. Got him on the north, now gonna have him on the east, and trying to figure out what options I have. Apologize, we did make it a little late, had some prior commitments. Maybe it was already addressed, but first off, that 50-foot was open space that's right off of Alpha Bellbrook Road. Is that gonna have trees in it? Is it going to be so I don't look out my front window and see houses? Or what's going to be, because the corner of the new property is right at the corner of my property line on the other side of the road.
Okay.
So what is in that 50-foot space?
Valid question that has been brought up, but continue.
And then the other thing, I mean, I'm certainly on board with the traffic, not the other part, but the through traffic, but Alpha Bellbrook Road. Seems like a lot of folks think that's a racetrack, maybe a drag strip. So as soon as they cross Indian Ripple, coming down North Alpha Bellbrook, a lot of people, whether it's motorcycles, whether it's cars, they try to see how fast they can get between that intersection and on the other side of the property. So that's definitely gonna be something that we probably wanna take a little bit of look at. And then wildlife, I will say there's a ton of deer, foxes, all kinds of stuff that cross the road from that new development area to my property. We've already had deer hit, left in our yard. So definitely a concern about where do those animals go now? Again, with an increase in the traffic population, what are we going to expect?
Thank you.
And I still have a minute 45.
Good job. Good job. Come on up.
Does this property abut Indian Ripple? I don't see it.
No.
Okay.
No, but the Alpha Bellbrook portion is what I'm talking about.
We heard earlier that that was an option, and I don't quite get that.
It's going on the fact that we're owns that land.
Sure.
Which is kind of
My name is Gary Petrick. I live on 2608 Hayden Randolph, part of that plat. A little bit away from everyone else, but still may be affected. I just want to bring up an observation I've seen relating to the 2 points of egress. So like this new development here, existing only has one egress, same with this one. I understand that will be built out eventually, but there's no guarantee of that, right? So how is this approved, okay, in the fire department side? And, something similar is not. Also, if you're concerned about the distance, and I understand it makes sense to do this across, but this distance, fits in here multiple times. So there's compromises or solutions potentially available. That's all I really had to say.
Good point.
Thank you. Did you follow that? You followed that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
I know, I might need to remind it of it.
Anyone else in opposition? Anybody not for, not against, just kind of neutral, just wants to speak their mind? Come on up if so. No? Yes?
Hello, I'm Mike Rickey, 119 North Alpha Bellbrook Road. I'm not for or against or anything, it's Mr. Ober's right. It's his land, he can do whatever he wants to with it, right? So.
Within reason.
Within
That's
reason,
why he's
right?
here.
Yeah, so my concern is, the new development that's going, north of us, which is, Bridlewood Farms. And so I went to the meeting, what was it, 2 months ago for, Beavercreek, City, and he said he wants to do both developments at the same time, which is gonna be a nightmare for traffic, for construction, all that stuff. So my concern is, can we postpone this until Bridlewood is done, do the traffic survey, see what that says, and then continue the other development. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mike Sullenberger, 139 James River Road. I just want to clarify, I think from Mr. Hill asked a question about an access point or something towards Indian Ripple. Ober Construction does own the land at the corner of Indian Ripple and Alpha Bellbrook Road as well.
Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to now close the public portion of the meeting. And at this time, what you will see happen is the board will discuss the things that we've heard. And we will ask you questions if we still have some, and we will talk to staff if we have their questions for them. All right.
Mr. Ober, I got questions for you. Can you talk, I'll wait till you get up. Can you talk about that property that you own that's south of
Yes.
your property? You own that, is that correct?
We do. That property is zoned commercial. And we have an end user already for that with a letter of intent. So, I mean, that's not a part of this proposal. That's not in play. And we don't believe that it's a good idea to mix the commercial and the residential development.
And can you talk about the traffic studies that's done over there on South Alpha Bellbrook? I certainly understand what they're saying with the two entrances over on Indian Ripple, but if I remember right, because I drive through that area quite often, the South Alpha Bellbrook is a little bit more of a hilly or less of a line of sight, if I'm correct, and Indian Ripple's more of a flat. I'm not asking you to explain why the other one on Indian Ripple has entrances so close together. I'm just trying to understand, when you guys do the traffic study, what is taken into consideration on the traffic study that you do?
Well, it's a safety issue, it's a sight distance issue, and a best practices issue to align those two intersections to be across from each other. And I would be actually afraid of, I would be hesitant to move those, because if it did cause a serious accident, I would think there could be some liability there, by not following best practice issues.
And who sets those guidelines on where those entrances are? Is that something that you set up and you propose it, or is that something that you take this to the Greene County? And if you took to whoever the Greene County does the traffic studies and stuff like that, and who approves this, Greene County Planning Commission, is that correct?
Greene County Engineer.
Okay, Greene County Engineer. So if you took another proposal back to the Greene County Engineer and you showed two entrances, and I'm just on a proposal, just a question, they could still come back to you and say, that's not gonna work because that's gonna violate the safety. It doesn't go along with our planning. It doesn't go along with what we have, based on the traffic studies and what you're planning to do across the street. I mean, is that a possibility that they could do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a question about transitions. You said that in some townships, they have transitional zoning. And we've talked a little bit about how we don't have that, but that you felt that the trustees made the decision with that, somewhat of that in mind because of what was across the street with the city. In your business, I heard someone ask about transitioning housing because of property value. Is that part of transitional zoning when you see that? When you develop properties, do you look and say, okay, we're going to be moving from a high end to a lower cost point, so we want to put something in the middle that transitions that?
In this case, it's going the other direction. The higher priced houses will be going into Beavercreek Township.
I hear what you're saying. I heard someone else say that in their yard or in their backyard, it's the lady with the Ohio sweatshirt.
Yeah.
What did you say exactly so that I understand and he can answer that because he does this for a living, right?
Yeah, so when I looked at your website, your houses were about 180 a square foot, the ones that are quick move-in. The house that is for sale at the corner of Patrick Henry and James River is $258 a square foot. Would you be open to having a higher priced, more towards the $225 a square foot that butt up to Arlington Place if you're going to extend that road through?
Well, there's only 80-some lots, 84 lots in this development. And I think, I guess I'm not an attorney, but I would think you could get into some fair housing issues.
Okay, just asking, don't know.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, the township can't dictate.
Yeah, we can't.
We
No.
can't dictate.
I wasn't
what kind of
asking for you
prices.
to, I guess I wasn't asking you to do that. What I was asking was that in transitional zoning, is that part of what's done? Is there a tapering, if you will, that allows for value changes, size of lot, for example, or the amenities that are offered?
typically the transitional zoning is a means of allowing what's maybe outside of the norm within a township.
Yes.
Because they want to prevent a property like this from being annexed to the city of Beavercreek.
Okay.
And I will say that the one thing that was done, and this was done as the resolution stated, was that the lots that are directly adjacent to the existing RPUD or in place are bumped up in lot size to 20,000 square feet. They did do that as part of that resolution.
Okay. I just
So-
want to make, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So with those, so based on that, so if they're gonna be jumped up, are those gonna be premium lots then? Are you gonna charge
The
more for
larger
the,
lots.
the larger lots?
Absolutely.
So they would be considered premium
They
lots?
will be.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, just checking about that. And then, another thing, this doesn't pertain to you, I was just gonna try to educate the community on this, thank you very much. Folks, when they talk about the city versus the township, it is a Beavercreek Township with an incorporated section and an unincorporated section. And you're living in the unincorporated section, and we are overseeing the zoning change that took place there. And so when he's talking about annexation into the city, that's still part of Beavercreek Township. That's always a little confusing for some people, so I wanted to make certain that that was understood. I heard that.
The city was carved out of the township, yet it remains in the township.
But we don't control the zoning in the incorporated portion.
Correct. And that's
But
when
they
you
get to
hear
elect our
these,
trustees.
yes. It's hard to get your head around sometimes, so I want to make sure you guys got that. I heard something about child safety, and that always makes my ears perk up, and that is with regard to bus stops. You know, we only see what's in front of us, the proposal that's in front of us. When things like that happen, bus stops can be moved. Those are things that you work through with the schools. I don't think that that's something that we put conditions on, correct?
I don't think that we as a township can control that.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, that's not something that we would do, just so that you're aware of that. I think that it's very interesting about the tree lines, I think that's interesting, and I would like for us to discuss tree lines and buffering. I think we can do that.
Can we ask Mr. Ober about that? Because he's
Yeah.
the one that's gonna do it. So, because I think before when you were talked about this, when we were, way back when we were talking about the actual rezoning of it, you said your goal in this plat is to maintain as many trees as possible because it actually helps sell lots.
Yeah, this site has a lot of topography on it, and it's also a pretty heavily wooded site. It was I understand, a walnut tree farm at one point. So
Hence the
I have a
name.
wooded lot, so I don't know why everybody wants one, but they do. And so it would be our goal to save as many of those trees as we can, particularly those that abut Arlington Place. So we'll try to design utilities and grade in such a way that we avoid tearing out trees where possible, because they add value to the lot, they add desirability to the lot, and it just makes for a nicer looking development. So it's hard at this point, without final engineering, for me to be able to say, in this area, we're gonna save all the trees, in this area, we're not. Now, at the proposed connection to Arlington Place, whether that road goes through or not, there'd be significant tree removal at the end of that substreet because that's where the sewer connects to this development. So the county is gonna probably require, what, Andy, a 30-foot easement probably for that sewer, so the trees would have to be cleared out in that 30-foot easement. And typically, the county is gonna not be thrilled about not having that street connect either, because they don't like to have to go on undeveloped property, i.e. they typically require that those utilities be in the street. So,
Are there any industry changes with regard to impact on ecosystems? When I'm thinking about the wildlife and the trees, is there anything that's dictating that at this point?
no.
Okay.
Can you give us,
Protect the Indiana bat.
The Indiana bat, that's it, okay.
can you give us a, do you have any type of rough what that open space going down Alpha Bellbrook is gonna look like? I mean, is it gonna be just a green place with sidewalks, or is it gonna be just a green open space with no sidewalks? Is there gonna be a type of any white fence line like you see going down Trayvine?
You know, Mr. Porter, at this point, again, it'll be tough to give you a specifically accurate answer, but I can tell you that depending on what we have to clear for road improvements, we're gonna try to save anything in that area that we don't have to clear. If we have to clear trees for grading purposes and road widening purposes, we would likely put a mound back in place and put trees on top of the mound because it makes for a more valuable lot on, for us to sell on the other side.
Sure, you wanna make it more aesthetic to people driving down the road versus, okay.
And we've required that before, along Trayvine, for example, on the Fairborn end, well, near, yeah, we have that on that.
That's why I brought
Spring
it up.
Ridge,
That's
yeah.
more, to me, I like that when you drive down and you see those.
And,
that's why I
and that
mentioned
is
it.
something that we did. We did that, didn't we?
We have done that before on developments along the road, put conditions for mounding and buffering, yeah.
The only thing I would ask you to be careful of, and we could put an either/or condition, and I'm not objecting to that, but I don't think you would want me to tear down nice existing trees if we
No,
don't have to
correct.
replace with mounds. And so sometimes, I mean, I know in the township, we had a situation like that in Nathaniel's Grove, where there was mounding called for, and we went back and amended that PUD because it did make sense to tear out some nice existing trees to go and put a mound. So,
Okay.
I mean, we'll work with you on that. I don't know how you might want to word something like that.
Yeah.
We just can't put them in the right of way. Remember?
They can't put them in the
We have
right.
new rules. Okay.
Did I answer the
You did.
Thank you.
Don, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Procedurally, let's assume that we want to we approve it conditioned upon moving the second access. We're a recommending body. What does that look like?
I mean, you would put that as, you recommend approval based on these conditions, and then those are the conditions that go to the Board of Trustees, and then they consider that recommendation.
So we don't have the authority to act on this. We only have the authority to recommend.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, and we must be specific in that recommendation. We can't just say,
We can't just say find another access, right?
Right.
We have to say where the access would be.
No,
That's what, I know, I'm just asking.
that's what I'm trying to find out.
that's not what I'm hearing. I'm sorry, Rick, I didn't mean to.
No, that's all right.
I'm
So,
glad you guys brought it up.
I mean, you guys have to determine how you would word it. I mean, I can work with you on that. I don't know that you have to specifically tell them where you would recommend it be. I mean, you could make that your recommendation is that there be a different secondary access. The question with that is sort of, without, none of us are in the position to do the engineering or whatever on how that would work. So I think it would make it difficult for that recommendation to be followed without specifics and the abilities for that to happen. That doesn't preclude you from making such a recommendation.
You can do whatever.
That's all we can do.
I think that's all we can do too. Jeff, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I've been quiet over here the
You've
whole
been
time, listening to
really
you all,
quiet.
just, great comments, but I did take the time to read Mr. Varga's email and all the other emails I got, and I listened to y'all, and it's obvious to me with respect to number 5 and number 11, we kind of missed the mark on it. We make the claim that there was no significant detrimental impact to the surrounding community.
We move to the next phase.
I didn't hear that tonight.
Yeah, we're discussing.
Okay.
Yes.
You've closed it then?
Yes.
Okay.
He's
I'm sorry,
clarifying
Jeff,
that
I'm
we
sorry.
were closed. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then the other point that was brought up on number 11, the functionally independent environment. By the nature of joining these two neighborhoods, they've become an integrated neighborhood, like it or not.
Right.
And so everybody here wants to see what's best for the community. Everybody has in their best interest to ensure that the community hangs together, if you will. And the fact that we're joining these two neighborhoods together, and they are different, I don't know that we can walk away from this and say that we haven't totally addressed the detrimental impact to the surrounding community. I think both have valid points that need to be considered, but the fact that we're joining these two together with a roadway, whether we put a barrier, with a tree line to make it look like we're two different communities, the fact that we're joining it together. I got the same problem in our property. We're adjacent to a farmland, and as soon as they rezone that farmland, which they haven't, but if they did, that would open up to us and we get all kinds of through traffic, and we would become a joint neighborhood. So, I think it's great that we're trying to improve the land, the neighborhood, and the developer's been very, I think, cooperative.
And patient.
But I think the questions that are being asked about, making sure that we're both safe and considerate of the surrounding neighborhood, we need to take a look at if that's within our power as a committee to recommend, for us to go back and ask the developer to consider an alternative entry. Because what we've done, in essence, is created 3 different entries now into the other adjoining neighborhood. That's my 2 cents.
Thoughts?
I see both sides of it.
I do too.
And I really do. And right now, I've lived in 2 different neighborhoods. I've lived in the neighborhood Wagner Trace where it was a nightmare to live in. I live in the same community as Jim and Jeff do now. And I wasn't there when the tornado came through over there. But the first thing I thought about when I moved in there, because I'm just that type of person, I always got to know my way out of places. We've got the same situation where our neighborhood connects to it, but there's only one access out onto Trapevine. So if that is blocked, which my understanding it was, correct me if I'm wrong.
It was.
You couldn't get out of that neighborhood for 5 days, or whatever, 3 days, 2 days, whatever it was. Some people, that didn't matter. To me, I have to find my way out of places, so I would have drove through the farmland to get out of there if I had to, but. So that does kind of concern me a little bit on that, but I also see the aspect of it too, that it could possibly create some more traffic going through there, and I've lived on that street, and that's one of the reasons why we moved off that street, is because it was a nightmare watching people come through there. I was just waiting for a kid to get hit.
So you see both sides of it. Jeff has said there is an issue with condition 5 and 11. Are those the numbers?
Yeah, those are the 2 that caught my eye.
And those were primarily based on the testimony that you heard from people tonight and the documents that came, correct?
Functionally independent and detrimental impact to the
Can we talk about that functionally independent a little bit more so we're all on the same page with it? Your definition was it was loose, but you associated it with phases of development, correct? And that this is one phase. Did I understand you to say, Mr. Ober, that you are going to start, hold on, I gotta find my notes. It was gonna, section 1 would start with 28 houses and be finished by fall of 2025, or was that all 4 sections that would be finished by fall of 2025?
The first section will be hopefully started in the spring,
Right,
and the lots would be finalized, or finished, and ready to build on by the fall.
okay, and that's just the first section, those 28,
Now, this is probably a 5 or 6 year.
which is why I'm asking that question. That doesn't sound functionally independent, that sounds like that's phased.
May I address that?
Yes, please.
So, in general, it's the policy, I believe, of the township and the county, we can't have any more lots than 30 with only one access. So phase 1 will have 28 lots, and we'll have just one access off of Alpha Bell. Section 2 will connect to the proposed Arlington Place, and then would allow us to develop the rest of the 84 lots, because we will have 2 access points.
Okay, pause now. Talked about, was it Bridalwood being developed at the same time? Did I hear that?
Well, see,
Tell me about that.
Across the road.
The sewer comes from Arlington Place to get to Bridalwood. We
Okay.
have to put that sewer in before we can develop Bridalwood,
Makes sense.
why we bought this stuff. So Bridalwood is an independent development. It follows the same rules, though. We can't put in more than 30 lots in Bridalwood without a second connection. But Bridalwood also is a different product line, so these will be non-competing developments.
They may be non-competing developments, but I heard people say that they were on the same construction timeline, that might cause some problems. And
Actually, it
so,
helps.
help me understand it. Help us all understand it a little bit more.
First, it helps because of the utilities. You have to extend sewer and water to Bridalwood and to Walnut Ridge. But the road construction interruptions that will take place on Alpha Bell could be timed much more efficiently if we were making both improvements at the same time. It would actually minimize road shutdowns on the developments as opposed to having to do it twice.
Got it.
Does that
Now,
make sense?
yes, now, does that make sense to everybody? Good. Now, bring up your point about the merging of the already existing neighborhood. You talked about it being functionally independent, because that was one of your situations there that you thought was.
Yeah, the point I'm getting at is it's
Okay.
obvious, we've connected the 2 neighborhoods.
Okay,
It's not independent.
it's not independent. But that's separate from what he's trying to describe.
No,
with
I
this.
understand it.
Okay, well, I wasn't clear on that, so
No.
that's why I brought it up. Okay, thank you.
I've got another question for Mr. Ober, if that's all right. Can I ask?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, in the situation of, let's say that wasn't a connecting street there. Say they built a house there, or say the other developer had done something in the future, or done something to prevent that access point from there. So let's say that access point wasn't there. Where would you have put the second access? Is that putting you too much on the spot?
I might not have bought the site.
Well, you would have had to get the utilities through, right? Because the utilities are coming from Arlington Place.
You do have to connect to get the utilities,
Okay.
that's right. But, you know, the street connection is a separate issue, but one would, I mean, I think it's reasonable to expect that if you have a development with a stub street to a vacant piece of property, that stub street's gonna eventually go through and connect to the vacant piece of property.
Yeah.
We had that expectation, obviously, in buying it, but here we are.
Right. Sure, I understand that. Just because there's a stub street doesn't mean that's, you always gotta anticipate. My mom and dad built a neighborhood and 15 years later, somebody came through and bought the neighborhood and there's a cut through going through there. So, but it was built with the stub street, with the anticipation future,
Right.
that was gonna be done. So when
Exactly.
they built Arlington Place, and I understand that they were talking about, Arlington Place was gonna build into there, and I don't know why they didn't or didn't, but the goes back to the township, and I know you weren't here, Andy, at the time, but when you develop a development like this, a lot of times you do put that second or third access in somewhere
Correct.
with the anticipation that 5 years, 10 years, 30 years down the road, something's gonna go in there and gonna connect that.
Well, it's a planning tool, right? I mean, so that there is connectivity, so the fire department can get through, so that who knows what will happen. And I think there was somebody that said, obviously earlier, that they put that substrate in thinking that they might build or develop over there in the future. So I mean, even there was some planning from the person who developed Arlington Place, that something may happen there in the future. Probably didn't happen because the Walnut Tree Farm wouldn't sell, you know, or they couldn't get the deal that they wanted.
But when development was approved, the thought process behind that was that would eventually be an access point there. And even if
Just like we looked at earlier with the examples that Mr. Grogan brought up with the McIntyre Farm, how there's the substreets in Stonehill Village, substreets coming off, they're just there to vacant pieces because their subsequent development's generally going to happen.
Right.
It might not happen right away. It might not happen for 20-some years, or 30-some years, like in this case.
Well, go ahead.
And even if Arlington Place had on to expand in that, they still could have put an access point onto North Alpha Bellbrook, and more likely would have put an access onto North Alpha Bellbrook. So you would still be in the same position even if they had gone ahead and moved forward with their building from Arlington Place. I mean, we're making some assumptions of what ifs. That's been my thought process and experience that I've had with stuff.
We are really close here, you guys. We are really close. Only other thing I had on my list of things that I heard was about power infrastructure. Are you, any of you, aware of a power problem out there, or that needs to be addressed, or that is planning to be addressed in the future? Because I did hear that. We're putting
I'm not aware of
any
power
new
issues.
grid, any new anything?
Interconnectivity?
Yeah.
I mean, and generally, anytime things get looped
Right.
around helps. I mean, they're gonna look at water lines being looped and everything else. and
Right.
All that's part of the
Sure.
whole infrastructure project.
The reason I was bringing it up is, we just did one down the road here. There was a big change that was brought forth with AES, I believe. And so is there anything that's happening on that end of town that people might want to be aware of that you know about? Okay. And that's not something that we have jurisdiction over. That's not something we can make recommendations about. And it doesn't, in my opinion, fall under detrimental impact. And that you can challenge me on that, but I don't think it does. So I'm good, but my ears are perked on this condition 5 and 11. So we need to address that as a team. What kind of recommendation do we want to make at this point? Because that's all we can do.
Jim? You have the words of wisdom.
I guess. I want to make a point. I want to get something off my chest. Procedurally, I'm very concerned about how this all came about. I think the process works generally. I think there was a lot of things mishandled. I do not think it's Mr. Earhart's fault. I actually don't even think it's Mr. Ober's fault. When we first met, it was made abundantly clear in the staff notes that it may be worth noting that this evening's action is only about rezoning the subject property. If the rezoning is ultimately approved, an additional round of public hearings will take place to consider the actual development plans in detail. That was what was in the staff notes. Mr. Edward Amron sat right there, and he reiterated that to all of us. It went to the trustees. They passed the zoning. And then they took the three most obvious issues and ruled on them. That would have been density, setbacks, and ingress and egress. But I will say, with regard to ingress and egress, they left an out for us to address those issues. But our hands are tied on the density and the setbacks, and I think that's wrong. I think that's a cram down on everybody in this room. I hope that this doesn't happen in the future. Now, to the present. I think the most significant issue, obviously, is the ingress and egress. We're kind of past everything else. I hear two major concerns, and they kind of bleed over. The first is safety. I'm buying it. I consider this a safety concern. I worry about adding additional traffic. I respectfully agree with Mr. Brown that putting two neighbors next to each other makes them the same neighborhood. We're next to another neighborhood, and there are actually streets connecting us. But I still think I'm in an independent neighborhood. I think that this probably really affects the individual nature of the Arlington Place neighborhood. Second concern is the character. And with all due respect, Mr. Ober, and I do want you to have your PUD. I know it doesn't always sound like it, but I do want you to have it. That's kind of on you. I mean, you created a neighborhood of such different character, I mean, almost polar opposite character of Arlington Place, that's created this issue. So I guess my feeling is, and I know you've still got some other things you want to concern, but I think my personal feeling is that we should approve the specific site plan conditioned upon the second access being moved to Alpha Bellbrook. I mean, I could talk forever, but I think I've said what I need to say.
So what happens if, and I'm not saying yea or nay on either one.
I've got faith in Mr. Ober.
So, no, I'm
I
saying
think
that
he'll
what
find a
happens
way,
if
and if he doesn't, we have to come back to the drawing board on it.
Okay. So
And they may have to swallow the pill.
Okay. So that's my question. So what happens if Mr. Ober redesigns all this, takes it back to the Greene County Department, they say, hey, no way you're gonna do that because of
Well, we haven't even heard
traffic
back from
and
them to
security
begin with,
concerns. So then it's gonna come back to us and we're gonna have to.
But what if they did?
I understand.
Okay, we can what if ourselves all night long.
I understand. I just want to make sure that
heard
that's
that.
an understanding that could possibly happen.
I get it. I deal with assumptions of risk every day. I just don't think that the detriment that this potentially causes this neighborhood should be on them. And I think they're the ones that are gonna bear the burden of it. And I think,
I feel the same way, because like, we've been, what you're talking about, we were specifically told when we started this whole discussion in November of 2023, that we were only there to talk about zoning, period. We were then left the public meeting open, pushed the meeting back and talked again in December, and again, we were told, we are only there talking about zoning. We, as a board, commission, decided we did not want to push forward with the rezoning. At that point, it goes to the trustees. The trustees were told, everybody heard, that after this has been sent to the trustees, they're going to decide on rezoning. Then we would have another discussion to be able to go through all of this, density, the setbacks, and yet the trustees, on their own, without any kind of input for us whatsoever, took it upon themselves and decided density, decided setbacks, decided all of this. So my whole point is, we're gonna have this whole discussion, we're gonna do I mean, what's stopping it anyways? We've spent all of this time having this discussion for them to come back anyways and make up rules without even having a consideration for the process, in my opinion.
I think it's time that I address this. And I've addressed this with you all before, but I think that the public needs to hear this. at that meeting, and I listened to them both all day today. The discussion of density and the discussion that conditions could be put on the zoning, the PUD zoning, came up multiple times. This board acknowledged, in fact, I can give you the times on the video. In fact, where individual members of this board said that we can discuss things such as density and the conditions can be determined when rezoning. That was discussed here. That was discussed in November last year, in December last year, and it was discussed again with the trustees. Under the PUD statutory provisions, as well as in our zoning code, our zoning resolution, a PUD allows for specific zoning as to a particular piece of property. That's the type of PUD zoning we do in Beavercreek Township. And we do it all the time, and we discuss density at the zoning point. For example, the, what's the large nutter development? Stonehill Village. The Stonehill Village PUD included density levels throughout it. We do that regularly in PUDs. The statutes that govern what the township trustees can do when it comes to zoning is Revised Code Section 519.02. It specifically says that they can adopt regulations and can consider things such as percentage of lot areas that may be occupied, setback building lines, sizes of yards, courts, open spaces, and density of population. They can do that by resolution. PUD rezoning is a resolution. They did what they were statutorily authorized to do. This zoning commission could have.
Meaning us or they meaning the trustees?
They meaning the trustees. This zoning commission could have also put conditions on the zoning if you chose to recommend
Okay, well, Dawn,
approval.
not splitting hairs, because we were literally reminded by Ed over and over again, even in the minutes, you are specifically here for rezoning.
Which is
period.
what that is,
So we were
PUD
not addressing
rezoning.
any of that. So
Considering
you
is
know
different,
that.
considering is part of the soup is not acting on it, okay? I know they can consider all those issues. but
No,
that-
they can, that is
I
part
know
of
they can, but you know what,
PUD
my grandpa
rezoning.
used to say, because you can do it, doesn't mean you should. And given everything that was said to these people and said to us in terms of they're just going to rezone, they went much further than that.
That's all they did
Well,
was
that's what I'm
rezone.
confused. So it wasn't a PUD at
Map
the time,
amendment.
and it wasn't zoned for residential.
Is that cultural and commercial?
But the
Yeah,
application was for a residential
So they rezoned
PUD.
it and approved it, right?
For a residential PUD.
In addition to, then, took it one step further and then
No.
went through with the PUD, because it wasn't a
So-
PUD when it was
The
brought to
PUD
them.
is a rezoning.
So where I,
That's what it was rezoned into, was a PUD.
so
And
this
then
is,
did that.
I understand what you're saying. This is where I've gotten hung up on it a couple of times. Well, I'm still hung up on it. And that is that we were told it was for a map amendment and we asked on a number of occasions, then why did he put in the PUD the application for density at that time? That was in that application. And we were told, that's not for us to decide.
Actually, you weren't told that. I listened to it specifically for that today. And I can tell you, at 57 minutes and 40 seconds into that hearing
Yes.
on November 3rd, 23rd, you said we can discuss things such as density and other conditions. You said we can make recommendations of conditions 1 minute into, or 1 hour and 21 minutes into it. There were questions about putting conditions as to tree lines and buffers. It was discussed throughout that meeting, the conditions you can put onto a PUD rezoning. PUD zoning district is just, it is a zoning district, and that's what you all were here to do, was to consider that rezoning, a PUD rezoning, which allows you to consider things like density, setbacks. And you all heard the information from individuals here, but you all made the decision, which you absolutely had the right to do, to deny a recommendation. So then the township trustees took that into consideration, took into consideration the same public hearing that they had, and they made the decision to rezone with conditions.
Okay, I opened this can of worms, and I'd like to close it, because this isn't productive at this point.
I agree.
If everybody's ready, I'm ready to make a motion.
I'm ready to entertain one.
In case number 837-A, I would move to recommend to the Beavercreek Township trustees that they approve the specific site plan submitted by the applicant. It says Ober Land Developers, LLC. I don't know if that's the actual applicant or not.
Yes.
It is, okay. I would move to approve the specific site plan Ober Land Developers, LLC, regarding Walnut Ridge subdivision, with the condition that the second access be moved from its current location to Alpha Bellbrook Road.
I'll second the motion.
I have other conditions I would like to actually put on there. So, I mean, is that okay to have a discussion about that?
Sure.
So a couple things that I noted, as you look on here, density has been approved at 2.5, Ober's coming in at 2.7. I would like to see that specifically mentioned, so it is at 2.7.
2.27.
Yeah, and it's not 2.5. And I would
It's
also
less
like
than
to add the buffer tree line, that's fine, but I still want it, the 2.7 in the recommendation, not 2.5. And I want the
For
buffer tree
clarification,
line
then it's
between.
not 2.7, it's 2.27, 2.27.
Like,
Oh, it's under the
So it's
2.5.
less
I
than the
know,
2.5.
I want the 2.7, so you guys have it written, so it's 2.5. So meaning.
You
if
want
he
it approved at
decides-
a higher density than
no,
what it's allowed.
No, the opposite, so if it comes back, I want it so that it is lower than what it is.
Then
So
that
I
would be
want that.
2.27.
That's what I said, with conditions shall not be. That's what I just literally said. And then I also want a buffer tree line. I want to put that in so that there is some type of, in there that there's a tree line between the neighborhoods for the existing trees.
Well, I'm not sure there's much we can do about the density at this point, because I think they've locked us down on that. I'm just saying,
Well, I want it to be in there that it stays where it is right now, that it is.
Just, can I clarify, you're just asking that you don't want the development to go up from the 2.27 that is currently proposed?
You did that
Okay.
because the trustees gave them the 2.5.
Okay.
I hear that.
do I start over, or?
No.
Get amended.
Well, you'd have to do a motion to amend his motion unless it hasn't been seconded, but
So
it was.
it was kind of secretly seconded over there. I don't know if she got that or not. You didn't get it? Okay, so it wasn't on record. It was a very quiet one, and I didn't say, okay, let's call it or discuss it.
Can I
So-
make one other recommendation?
So
Jamie?
we've got, hold on a minute. I want to make sure that you got all of that. Can you repeat what you have, please? And then add it.
So a motion to approve the site plan with condition with the second access to Indian Ripple.
No.
Alpha
I'm
Bellbrook.
sorry, Alphaville, sorry,
From its current location to Alpha Bellbrook Road.
thank you.
Okay, and then you heard what?
That the density not be changed from the 2.27.
I'm hearing that she has to make a motion to amend my motion. Is that right, Randy?
Only if it was seconded, but
Andy.
we were saying
It
it
was,
wasn't.
she didn't
There
get
was- there's no
recorded
second.
as second, correct.
I did not hear a second because I heard her say
Yes.
that she wanted to add additional conditions. And then also the tree line buffer. is what I-
Between Arlington Place and the proposed.
And now Mr. Porter has another one.
I recommend that we don't tie Mr. Ober's hands to just south Alpha Bellbrook. If we're gonna recommend a second access be put somewhere else, that we leave it open, that a second access be found other than
To Arlington
the
Place.
Arlington Place. That way it gives him a little bit more flexibility if he has it or
Maybe
not,
be
to
a
look at
specific
different
one.
things. And whether this is pigeonholing them into South Alpha Bellbrook.
What I'm hearing from Mr. Ober is it doesn't matter, that if it's gonna be anywhere, it's gonna be on Alpha Bellbrook.
Well, yeah, 'cause he's talking about the commercial development.
I'm sorry?
The main access, you mean?
No, a second one. If it's gonna be anywhere other than where it is, it's fine.
He's going to sleep.
So,
I
Can
just wanted to leave it open, is all.
I was saying if there wasn't, if they couldn't find an opportunity, that he could find another one outside of the.
Yeah, I'd like to see those on the.
road.
okay, so
It may still be.
repeat what you heard him say, and then we'll fix that. Go ahead.
I did not capture everything.
Okay, good. Okay, try it again, Rick.
My recommendation is that if we're going to recommend that another second access be looked at, that it be open-ended and not pigeoned, or not specifically said to, as to go to South Alpha Bellbrook. It may end up there, but if we
So-
leave it open.
Does he also have to make a motion to amend my motion? Randy?
Well, he hadn't been seconded yet. So I think we could prioritize for it to be Alpha first, and then if it doesn't work, to explore another one.
Seek Indian Ripple.
Well, I don't want to specify names of streets, that's all I'm saying, but.
But I think.
Where are we, Randy?
I think we were, because
17
we were in a place where, hold on a minute, we were in a place where we did want to look at Alpha Bellbrook in part because that's what the residents were saying.
I understand.
Okay.
I just was trying to not tie Mr. Ober's hands. So.
Well, I think by saying that first look at Alpha Bellbrook, and if that's not feasible, to find a second alternative that is not what has been proposed,
That works.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Separate access is all.
Okay, now, please repeat it back. God love her. Repeat it back before I entertain a second one, or we're gonna be doing this all night.
As all of them, or what he requesting?
What Rick said, what Mr. Porter said.
So to have an open-ended,
Rather than
Condition.
specifically name a road, to leave it open-ended where the second access is going to happen.
so
Okay,
an open-ended
open.
condition to have a second access point.
Okay. All right.
At whatever road that would not be.
We gotta have, somebody's gonna help us out here, okay?
I can withdraw the motion and try to restate everything. Am I allowed to do that?
And yes,
yeah,
and
hand it a
can you
second.
keep in mind also the recommendations that staff
Yeah, I was
made?
gonna say, I like the 4 recommendations that I proposed to be.
That they're the typical recommendations we put on in terms of that it's subject to Greene County Regional Planning, that those
Yeah,
would be.
we'll get that, we'll get that.
Yeah,
I promise you, we'll get that, okay.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to withdraw his motion, start over. with
Okay.
a clean motion.
I'll withdraw my prior motion, and I'll make a motion in case number 837-A regarding the specific site plan submitted by Ober Land Developers, LLC for Walnut Ridge subdivision, that the specific site plan that the commission recommend to the trustees that the specific site plan be approved, conditioned upon the second access being moved to Alpha Bellbrook Road. And if Alpha Bellbrook Road is deemed unacceptable by the county, an alternative point, not leading into Arlington Place. And that there be a buffered tree line between Arlington Place and Walnut Ridge subdivision as an additional condition.
Hold on, Mr. Hill, just let her catch up if you don't mind.
What about these?
You got it, she didn't.
It's on tape, right?
And I don't,
And the density. And then what the 4 conditions that they need, but let's give it a minute.
Can we make those 2 different? All one.
Can I make a suggestion while she's writing in terms of her question, the density, that she does not want it to, that the density does not exceed what is currently, because sometimes there are things that happen at
Well-
regional planning that lots have to be
Well,
adjusted.
they also
and
have to look
sometimes-
at potentially moving the access.
Tell me when you're ready.
Yeah. So, I mean, but the problem is if he's moving the access point, there's still a 2.5 on the,
Well, I think though that she was trying to live by the land use plan that had that, because when we did the math, it came out 2.27.
sure, no, I understand that.
Trying to get a
But
little
she's
wiggle
wanting to
room.
add-
I know,
But there is density that's already been approved.
I know. We're
Okay.
just recommending, we know.
I don't think it'll go through second access. That's the only option. Nothing. Just my opinion. I understand. I was wrong once.
That density does not exceed 2.27 units per acre. That's stated by.
No, it's not. It's
Yeah,
8:40.
we're missing kickoff here.
Oh, it's Thursday night.
It is.
Rick's like, let's get this done.
I'm happy till Yellowstone comes on. I don't care what's on
I am too. I
TV.
even got Paramount Plus just for that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Mr. Hill, thank you.
Can't
Thank you.
So we've got the access road, the
Yes.
2.27, no more than 2.27 units per acre. We've got the tree buffer
Yes,
between Arlington Place
yes,
and Walnut Ridge. And what was the other?
And that we recommend the recommendations made by staff in their report.
The 4 points.
and do we need to identify those 4 points in order, or is that enough for that?
I think it's enough to
Okay.
say that because they'll get the same staff
Okay.
Yeah,
report.
they'll get
Okay.
the same stuff.
All right. Ready?
And that was it, right?
That was
Yes.
it, so let's repeat it.
So, I do not know if I have this.
We'll help you if not,
correctly,
let's
so
get there,
can
let's
clarify.
try.
So, motion to, for the zoning commission to recommend a specific condition
To approve with the
to approve
condition.
with the specific, with the condition upon second access to Alpha Bellbrook, and if unacceptable
To the county engineer.
by the county, that a second access point be considered,
Other than through
Patrick Henry.
Arlington Place.
other than, thank you. And there be a buffer of
Tree line
trees
buffer. Mhm.
between Arlington Place and Walnut Ridge. And density does not exceed the 2.27 units per acre as stated by developer. And the staff recommendation,
And that the staff recommendations be recommended to the trustees as well.
and that the staff recommendations be considered, or recommended to the trustees as well.
Yes.
Okay. I will take a second.
That covers all of it?
That, I believe that covers it all. Dawn, you good?
Sounds
Everybody
good.
happy? Okay, a second?
I seconded it already, I'll second it
Well,
again.
we hear you now.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
We hear you now.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
You retracted my second, I didn't.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
and Ms. Felter.
Yes. All right. Could you please put up the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. We're looking at minutes for October the 3rd, 2024. I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't reviewed them yet. I just got them yesterday, and it's nothing personal, I just haven't had time.
Do you want to table it? Or do you
I would
wanna-
like to table it.
Technically.
It's no big
I
deal.
second that motion.
I didn't hear you, what?
We'll move those to the next meeting. No
Thank you
problem.
so much.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Horton. Yes. Mr. Porter,
Yes.
and Ms. Dalton.
Yes. Okay. I would like a motion to adjourn, but before I get one, I just want to thank everybody for their patience with us, especially Mr. Ober. You've been so patient with us. It's a process. We're all in it together. We get things right, we get things wrong. We're all doing the best we can. So, all right. The trustees meeting is every other Monday, and when is
It's
the
the
next?
second and fourth Monday of the month. There will be a meeting on Tuesday because of the holiday, the 12th. At that meeting, the meeting to hear this will be set.
So not held, but set.
Yeah,
That's
so they aren't
set.
gonna hear it, they're gonna set the
They
meeting
won't hear
for
it
it.
on Tuesday, well, they will set a date to hear
Yes,
it,
to
and
hear
that
it,
will
correct.
be
More than
disseminated
like,
to us how?
The same way you got.
Yeah, public notice.
For this one, public notice.
and it will be posted on the website and
Facebook will show it.
No, there you go.
Yeah,
It'll be posted on the
Everybody within
website.
500 feet of that property will get the public hearing.
or anyone that's requested to be
Yes, or
notified.
anyone
If you request to be notified, you'll be
And
notified.
that request is available through the website.
Yes.
All right, motion to adjourn. Everybody ready? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay,
Say
we're done.
Do we need to?
Yes.
We got a roll call.
it.
Oh, well,
And
come on.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Consensus.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Ms. Porter.